Hello, sports historians. Welcome to another episode of Uninterrupted, this time with John Wooden's grandson-in-law, Craig Impelman. That's right, Imp, Uninterrupted. He's a walking book of history when it comes to collegiate basketball. He knows just about everybody in the game, and he'll tell you everything you want to know about the legendary UCLA basketball coach, John Wooden. So here you go from October 23, 2019, 130 minutes straight of Imp Uninterrupted.
Let's go. Take a shot.
I'm ready.
I'm going to get the assist on this. Where are you going to shoot from? Right there?
This is good here.
Oh, so close.
Yeah, okay. I was so close.
Woo!
All right. I made it. All right. Knock it down. I missed it. Welcome. Well, that's a tough shot. There's a lot of pressure. You know. Not everybody hits that shot.
Welcome.
Great to be here.
It's awesome that you came. I'm stoked, and I can't believe these archives that you brought here.
The challenge is going to be getting me to leave. So.
Oh, that's okay. We got. Hopefully, we got plenty of battery. You know, I met my daughter. She's on the camera. So if it runs out, we'll know. And you know, the Stanford kid, he'll do okay with the audio.
Stanford genius.
Yeah. So tell me, you said you might bring some archives, and I don't want to go without acknowledging these first. Then I got a couple questions for you, but. This one right here.
Oh, this is a funny story. Okay, so I married John Wooden's granddaughter. We've been married for 35 years. And as a result of that, we got carted along to a lot of different events. And so in Las Vegas, I forget the year, but 1999, they had the Victor Awards in Vegas for sports, which is kind of like a Oscars for sports, and there was a basketball coach of the century, which was awarded to John Wooden. So my wife Christy and I were with Papa, coach, I refer to him as Papa, with Papa, and we're sitting there, and it was a great event. I mean, all these famous people were there, and they're getting introduced, and they're getting their awards, and so then a big moment comes, and they have coach comes up, and he gets this award right here, and of course, standing ovation, John Wooden as always. And so I'm sitting here, and my wife Christy is sitting here, and Papa's sitting here. So he walks back down, and he sits down next to Christy, and he's holding this, and he kind of waits until things have calmed down, and he reaches over and he goes, "Honey, you take this and keep it and take it home. I think you'll enjoy it." And
like,
so,
hey, yeah, it's just coach of the century. You have this one.
This was it. And so that's how we ended up. That's how we ended up with this. So if we were talking about John Wooden,
yep,
he had zero interest in trophies and toys and accolades, and just because he just wasn't what he was interested in. You know, he often said that the one thing he liked, really was the proudest of, was the medal he got for being a All-American student at Purdue. That's been widely said over and over again. The other thing about John Wooden, we talk about being unique, and I just related this last night to my sixth grade basketball team. I never heard him say anything good about himself. I mean, if you can imagine all these conversations we've had over the years, and he's spoke at my basketball camps for 30 years, and you would think somewhere along the line he would tell a story about a game that he did a good job in, or a strategy that he used, but never, ever.
No, he just didn't do
that. I mean, I'm looking for it. I mean, I'm trying to now.
Because you would have liked it. You would have give him a little zinger.
I just wanted to hear say something, right? And there was only one exception. For all you basketball coaches out there was only one exception. And the reason it came up is because I introduced this drill last night to my 6th grade basketball team.
Okay.
It was a conditioning drill called the 3-on-2 conditioner.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a fast break drill that Coach invented that he ran every practice.
Mm-hmm.
And because he believed in conditioning while teaching fundamentals, not just conditioning to be running. And he was talking about the 3-on-2 conditioner, and he said, that's the best basketball drill I ever invented.
Yeah.
That's the only thing he ever said good about himself. So that's why I'm always trying to be insistent with the coaches that I talk to. You got to run the 3-on-2 conditioner.
Of course.
I mean,
you know what makes this interview great is we just haven't even got started, and it's I've coached a number of teams, and I've coached directly from what John Wooden put in his modern practical basketball, and including that 3-on-2 drill, and it hit me that that's it. Like, I'm not the only one. There's thousands of us coaches that coached exactly from the Wooden book, and it's so fun to hear like these authentic stories about Coach Wooden.
Well, and here's an interesting thing, and I have to say that I fell miserably short in this regard.
Mm-hmm.
So I was on the staff at UCLA with all the coaches that came right after John Wooden.
Yep.
So I was a graduate assistant with Gene Bartow his second year, and then I was there with Gary Cunningham, and then I went over to Pepperdine, and then I came back to UCLA for 3 more years with Larry Farmer. And, we had a system that Coach had used, so it was kind of hard to convince us to deviate.
It seemed like it had a little success
from that system. But I was reading, Pat Williams wrote a book about the John Wooden basketball camps, and one of the coaches at the camp said every year we would try to be like John Wooden and run all his stuff, and every year he told us to quit doing it and to just, if there's something we like, great, but go do your thing.
Be your own coach.
Your own. And I think a coach that really did a pretty great job on that. There's many,
mm-hmm.
to say the least. But, Denny Crum at Louisville
mm-hmm.
had been John Wooden's assistant and went straight to Louisville. And he incorporated a lot of the same principles, but he really made them his own.
Mm-hmm.
And which, if you go back to Coach Wooden's 7-point creed from his dad, the number one thing is be true to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if I was going to wind the clock back, I would probably try to be a little bit more innovative within the Wooden framework as a foundation.
I'm gonna wind it back on you. I want to get these other archives though recognized. That's Craig,
a great one.
Is driving me crazy how cool it is. So this is the 1968 championship game ball. So this would have been the 3rd title with Lou Alcindor.
Correct.
And the 5th overall.
Correct.
And signed by everybody on that team. A 78-55 rout of the Tar Heels in the finals.
And what was it? Now, there's a great innovation story here. What was the score of that semifinal game against Houston? It's on there.
It is on
here. You can
here.
see it, Denny. It's in dark.
It is.
It was a lot to a little.
NCAA's, here it is.
Houston,
101-69.
So 101-69. So speaking of innovation, interesting. Most people, sports fans, are familiar with that was the year that Houston beat UCLA by 2 points.
In a regular season game.
In a regular season game at the Astrodome.
Which was transformative in the history
the transformative event
of collegiate
basketball
athletics
on national TV.
Because they had that hookup that they would also use for the big heavyweight championship fights. It was like satellite or something along these lines.
Yeah.
And you could go to a movie theater and you might see that game.
Right.
But you might also get it via some of the television broadcasting groups. Like out here in Los Angeles, it probably would have been like KTLA or something that could access that signal, something along these lines.
Well, the interesting story about innovating.
Yeah.
Very unusual. Coach Wooden was very famous for not spending time on the other team, on being very consistent. You were going to get what you got.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to see a full court 2-2-1 zone press.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to see the low post, high post offense, whichever, depending on the team. And you're going to see man-to-man defense. And you're going to see that.
You're going to see it.
99 out of 100 times. And so they had played Houston and lost by 2. And, some people bemoan the fact that Kareem had a scratch cornea. But anyway, coach, being innovative, in that game, he went completely away from his normal game plan, and he ran a
in
diamond.
The semifinal game or in the
semifinal game.
In the semifinal game,
He lost playing his regular man-to-man defense, and in a surprise move, the one time he went off the rails, Coach Wooden came out in a diamond-and-one defense. So he had 4 players in a diamond-shaped zone with Kareem underneath the basket. And then I'm going to get the player wrong. I want to say Shackelford. I may be wrong. Chased Elvin Hayes all over
denying the entry pass.
And Hayes had a horrible he just chased him.
That is something else.
Out of nowhere, John Wooden junks the man-to-man
and
goes diamond and one.
Wow, you don't hear that often.
No.
Wow.
No. The other great innovation story from a coaching perspective was the Jacksonville game.
That was against Artis Gilmore. Yep. Mm-hmm.
And UCLA's tallest player was a fellow who was – now, if you're running a business and you're going, oh, come on, Lennon, why am I watching this? Okay, the message is listen to your team members. They know better than you what's going on. So quit giving them memos and find out what's happening and let them tell you.
Okay.
Toyota's been doing it for a long time, and it works pretty well.
Yeah.
So back to Coach Wooden and listening to your team members. So they're playing.
And then for those who don't know, Artis Gilmore was what, 7'4"?
7'2".
I mean, he was a big guy.
Artis Gilmore, 7'2". Sidney Wicks is 6'9".
Mm-hmm.
Jacksonville, very dominant team.
And I'm sorry, Craig, but this was in between Walton and Alcindor, right?
Yes.
In between Alcindor and Walton, rather.
Yep.
It was in between year where
Coach called them the team without.
That's right.
And he really enjoyed them because they said that after Kareem graduated,
here it comes.
Many thought, well, he'll get his comeuppance now.
Uh-huh.
And that didn't quite work out since they won 2 more championships in a row.
That's right.
But anyway, so they're playing the game, and Artis Gilmore starts out the game on fire. He scores a bucket, he scores a bucket, he scores a bucket. And so there's a timeout. Now, in basketball, when you're playing against a big guy, conventional wisdom says that you get around to the side and you don't let him get the ball. You make him move out, and then you jump behind so he gets the ball further away from the basket. Sidney Wicks says to Coach Wooden at the timeout, Coach, let me play behind him.
Oh, right.
Let him get the ball. Which, if you'd be like, if you're a normal coach, you'd be going, I don't think so. Okay? But Coach being Coach said, okay, Sidney, that's fine. Give it a shot. So Sidney went back out. Now, there's another business lesson here, and that is don't make your decision based on the result, the immediate short-term result. Make your decision on how it looks. So they came out of the timeout, and Gilmore got the ball, and Sidney Wicks proceeded, and it's 2 or 3, I don't know what the number is, but it was at least 2, to goaltend Gilmore's next 2 shots, maybe 3. So Jacksonville actually scored with this new strategy. But what did Coach Wooden like?
He liked the aggressiveness.
He liked the way it looked. He liked the way it looked.
Interesting.
So he stuck with it. Gilmore went 7 for 19, the worst game of his career, and UCLA went on to win another national championship. Another great Wooden story, since we're doing John Wooden, along the same lines, a fantastic story. Coach Wooden is very famous for the 2-2-1 zone press.
Right, full court press.
And full court press, and everybody always rattles around that, hey, we got the press going, and that's what started the string with the championships with Hazard and Goodrich and whatnot. But the story that's left out is The year before UCLA won their first national championship, Coach Wooden actually had the worst record of any of the other coaches in the tournament. And I've detailed it, but he had not had success in the NCAA tournament. But in 1962,
yeah, that's right.
He lost to Cincinnati in the semifinals, and he went, "Wow, maybe we can do this." And so he kind of retooled everything. And one of the things that he retooled was he added the full court press. So now in 63, before he wins it, he's got the press, and he's using the press. So it's got to be a success if you're going to stick with it, right?
Sure.
Book of the Month Club, all these businesses try new techniques. If it doesn't work in 2 months, we got to try something new.
We're out.
Well, that's not John Wooden. So UCLA plays Arizona State
in 63
the
or
NCAA
64?
tournament, second round,
64.
year before the championship.
63.
And get blown out using the press. I mean, they got beat. I think they were down 30 in the first half. They got beat 20. Arizona State couldn't miss a shot. But guess what? Coach Wooden liked
the look.
He liked the way it looked because he said that Arizona State would have beaten anybody that day because they were shooting the ball so well. But he liked the way that the press got the tempo sped up, which was to his liking. So in spite of getting blown out in the NCAA tournament, using his press, he thought it was a good idea.
Wow.
And he came back the next year with it. And what do they say? There's 10 of these balls?
Yeah, there's 10. Well, he's got 10 championships, 10 and
12.
12.
There's 10 balls. So the rest is history.
The rest is history. That 62, was that Oscar Robinson?
No.
No?
Cincinnati
Robertson,
never got to the semis
with
the Oscar. They actually – and there's a great story. There's some – this is life application, okay?
Okay.
So Coach Wooden is playing against Cincinnati in the semifinals. Now, I'm not talking out of school because Coach Wooden has written about this himself. So
okay.
Don't want to get anybody upset. One of his books, he's written about it multiple times. Coach Wooden did not think in his mind at the time they were playing in the men's gym, was where they practiced, the little gym on the campus. They did not have a home court.
That's right.
At UCLA. They had to go around the Olympic Auditorium. And
Shrine Auditorium.
They had to go different places and play
Venice
games,
High School.
Right? And they also had very restrictive admission standards, like Stanford does now. So there were certain players that wanted to come to UCLA that were good students that he couldn't get into school.
Okay.
And he thought in his own mind, with those two things going on, he didn't see how he could ever win a national championship. And he didn't talk about it publicly, but he was a bit, according to him, bemoaning to himself privately about it. Well, to his surprise, they end up in the Final Four.
Right.
In 62 against Cincinnati.
And he had taken the job in like 48, so this is 14 years later.
Long time later. So the starters were Walt Hazzard, Johnny Green, Pete Blackman, later I believe the vice chancellor at UCLA.
Oh, wow.
Gary Cunningham, later the coach. Fred Slaughter, later the dean of the law school at UCLA. Pretty smart group of guys.
Yeah.
And so they're playing Cincinnati, and it gets down to a minute and change to go. There's no shot clock, and UCLA has the ball.
Okay.
And they're holding for the last shot. They're in good shape. Hazzard has the ball right in front of the UCLA bench, and the guy guarding Hazzard's about 4 or 5 feet off of him because he doesn't want to get beat.
Right.
And Hazzard gives a fake, and the guy gets so shook up he stumbles and he falls down, even though he's this far away. The referee in the opposite corner called an offensive foul.
Oh, my goodness.
Cincinnati got the ball,
ran the clock,
made a half-court shot
at
the buzzer to win the game.
I didn't remember all that.
And Coach Wood never complained about the call. And the official came to him after the game and apologized. Coach said, "No need. You were doing the best you could." And then, famously, he got in the locker room and he told the players, "We got each other, and you guys did a great job."
Jeez.
And that was it. But then on that plane ride back, home after that game, that's when he said to himself, you know what? Maybe we can get this done, even with playing in the men's gym.
I see.
So then he went through everything that he did. I mean, Denny, everything that he did. This guy's attention to detail and planning
Is unparalleled.
It is unparalleled, yes. And so he made a lot of changes. The most substantive, I guess, off the top of my head would be that he stopped adding new content for the tournament. Obviously, this became an exception, but he didn't add any new plays.
Oh, yeah.
He started winding down the length of practice as the season
Towards the end
got
of the year.
towards the end, down to an hour and 15, hour and 30 minutes, as opposed to 2.5 hours. And I'm not sure if that's when he decided to play 7 instead of play 10, but I might be wrong about that. But so he made all these little subtle
Fascinating.
changes, and then he made all these great changes and got blown out by Arizona State.
But
He liked
the way it looked.
the look.
And he said, I might have something here.
I might have something here, and he stuck with it. Wow. And that's the birth of the system.
This is
you know?
awesome.
And
this
I mean, this
awesome.
is such a great lesson today with technology, media, Instagram, which is fantastic, Twitter, fantastic, Facebook, fantastic. Just don't get caught up. Use it as a resource.
Mm-hmm.
How would John Wooden use it? He would be looking at Instagram. He would have, that's a pretty good idea. Let me think about that.
Yeah.
So, and then he would try it. So he had a scientific method for improving that he employed every season
Okay.
until the final year, including the final year that he coached.
And didn't he follow the same prescription almost every preseason?
Every season.
The only time he would look ahead in the schedule was before the season started, and he would write his prediction on how they would do, and he'd put it away.
He put the paper in a drawer.
And
He
then-
wouldn't let anybody
and then he
see
would-
it. But
Yeah.
the ritual that he had that was so empowering was after every season, imagine, after every season he would sit down and he would pick a topic. So you're John Wooden, you've been coach, you got 9 national championships. It's 1974.
Uh-huh.
He's doing the same thing. He picks out a topic that he wants to study
Wow.
and improve on. So he starts out getting every publication he can get his hands on, let's say it's free throw shooting, to read about it. Then he looks up and he finds high school, college, pros, the best free throw shooting teams in the country. He phones those coaches and he says, hey, I want to improve my team's free throw shooting. You're at Penoble Junior College, and John Wooden's on the phone for you. Would you mind
That's
if I sent you a
crazy.
questionnaire?
That is crazy.
So then he would send out a questionnaire
Come on.
to these coaches. I forget the number. Let's say it's 15. And he would get the questionnaire back.
Unreal.
Now, this is before Excel,
Sure.
computers. He gets all the data back. He's a data guy,
He's
man.
an engineer.
And he takes all the data and he puts it, in his own words, in a spreadsheet before there was spreadsheets.
Uh-huh.
And he eliminates the outliers. Well, this guy shot 90%, but they practice free throws 2 hours every practice. So that's not. And then based on all that, he looks at the data and then he makes changes to tweak how he's going to
And-
practice free throws. So if we were going to stick on the topic of free throws,
Sure.
for example, what exactly did he change? Well, if you were a player at UCLA, by the time the season started, we would controlled scrimmage every day. On Thursdays, maybe a half an hour about every day. Don't hold my feet to the fire. But so you'd have 7 guys that were in the first group.
Right.
You'd have 7 guys in the second group.
Okay.
So let's pretend, Denny, that you're a guard. So there's 3 guards. 2 are in, 1's out. Okay?
Sure.
So coach would say, okay, Denny,
While you're
you
out.
go make 5 free throws or 10, whatever he thought your capacity was. And if it was a good capacity, he might say 10 in a row, depending on who you were, right? Denny, you go make 10 free throws in a row, and when you're done, you go get Bibby out of the scrimmage. Now, here's the key points. Okay, first of all, he did it while their cardio was up. It wasn't too long. And here's the best point for you micromanagers out there. And I'm sorry for being sarcastic. Coach Wooden would never be sarcastic. So I take it all back.
It's okay.
I take it all back. I'm sorry, Coach.
It's okay.
He did not say, Denny, come and see me when you make 10 free throws.
Go and get him.
Just go get him. So the process never stopped.
And it empowered.
And he'd go get Henry. Henry Bibby'd go out. He'd go make his free throws. He'd make his free throws. He'd go in. He'd get Valley. Coach was not involved in all this hocus pocus, right?
I love
the players are doing it. So think about the tempo. I got my Stanford guy here. Think about the tempo of practice, right? In the rhythm, in the beauty, and it's boom, 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 and it's just
oh boy,
right?
It was
so,
gold, gold.
It's
this guy.
I've studied coaches, and so I don't know what Bill Belichick does in practice, but if you were going to say what did Belichick and Wooden have in common, I could tell you one of the things is they say that Belichick walks into a meeting and says, here's 6 things we need to do to win the game this week.
Okay.
That's all he does. He gives 6 things. Now,
narrows the
he
focus.
arrived at those 6 things after going through
mountain of data.
1,000 things. I just exaggerated. Sorry, Coach. Hundreds of things, right? And Coach Wooden had all these details and all this data. But, Denny, if you were a player, he would just present it to you simply
like this.
What you were going to get repetition on.
And from that, as an athlete on a team, comes the confidence because you can master what the coach has given you. And when you master that and you repeat it over and over again, you get that confidence that allows you to do it in competition.
So it's a good time to talk about this.
Well, let's move on to the next archive from the great Piggy
So
Lambert.
I told Denny, I'm not allowed to take this book out of the house. I'm also not allowed to take this basketball out of the house.
But this is a special occasion, Craig.
I love Denny.
Yes.
I've only known this guy for a month, and I'm signing my text. Love him.
That's
I
right.
do love
you
him.
did.
How could you not love Denny Lennon? Come on.
Ah, this is good. I feel like Coach is telling me this.
He's got that enthusiasm block. Man, it's like blowing up with a huge double caps. So, okay. So we're talking about confidence.
Yes.
That's our topic right now.
Competency.
John Wood, confidence. Developing confidence.
Yes.
That's what we're talking about. Okay? So I'll take the long route since I'm big-time ADD.
Okay.
Coach Wooden wrote a book called Practical Modern Basketball. He wrote 14 books, 12 after he turned 90. Check that out. Go from there.
And
this is the only book that he wrote. He wrote this early on after he won the championship, I believe. But it's the only book that he wrote by himself. So if you are out there and you're running a business and you want to know how to run a business, you want to know how to get started, buy this book. The first 2 chapters is a roadmap for how to run a business. The appendix has the handouts that you need. Enough said. This book was a result of Coach Wooden's coach, Piggy Lambert, Hall of Famer, back in 34, wrote a book. Here's one I'm not allowed to take out of the house, called Practical Basketball. And this is actually...
It's unbelievable. Let me show this to the camera.
Piggy Lambert's copy. I got to be careful here. Go ahead. Be careful with that, Coach.
I will.
That he gives to John Wooden.
And
Denny, what does it say on there?
To Johnny. I love it. My appreciation of all you have done for me. Sincerely, Ward.
So let's talk about this book and let's talk about confidence. And then we're going to get to the confidence and we're going to get to the definition of success and how it all fits together. So how did Coach Wooden get to be so smart? He wasn't watching the Kardashians do Vegas at night, okay? He was reading.
Yes, he was.
He was reading.
Yes.
Okay? And he was annotating. I have a one thing I didn't bring, which I could never take out of the house. Idols of the Kings, his copy of that, which is written and underlined and would be great for teaching. But anyway, here's the book that Lambert wrote, Coach Lambert wrote. And you can see if you look at the camera that it's annotated.
Yep.
And I'm going to have Denny read right here 2 of the greatest. Go ahead, Denny.
2 of the greatest fundamental assets to the athlete in all branches of sport are being relaxed and having what is called balance.
Stop right there. Okay. So, confidence. Confidence. Okay. Piggy was huge on the players being relaxed, and he knew if one of his players was worried about something off the court, on the court, he wanted to remove all worry. Much is made about John Wooden never talking about winning. Did he like to win? He loved to win.
He loved to win.
Would he try to win every game he played against you?
Of course.
Yes, he would. He just thought talking about it would not make his players more what? More relaxed. And I have a friend of mine, Paul Hoover, did a great study on shooting, and he had a real system for shooting except for free throws. And I said, well, Paul, tell me about free throws. And I thought he was going to give me an exact system. He goes, there's too many systems. The only thing I can tell you about free throws is that bad free throw shooters, when they're at the line, their shoulders are tense. And good free throw shooters, their shoulders are loose. So we're back to being
relaxed.
Being relaxed.
You know what I find interesting about this, Craig, is relax and balance, right? And Coach,
well,
one of the things.
I interrupt you because I'm not John Wooden, in case you didn't notice. So you can't be balanced if you're not
relaxed.
Relax. So the coaches, if we're doing a jump stop and we stop, we're practicing being off what?
Off balance.
Off balance.
Yeah.
We got to stay loose, baby.
But
you stop, loose. The joints are always loose. Yeah. You got to loosen up, man. You got to stay loose.
My favorite guest ever.
I tell guys when they apply for a job, I take them and I go, "Come on, baby."
I'm gonna give you one of these trophies before you leave today as best guest ever.
So now, if we go all the way here to,
so wait, hold on, Craig. I gotta tell you something.
Yep.
I just found it interesting. Coach learned so much from those who were that he looked up to, like his father, his parents, and like Coach Lambert. Coach always said the two most important words in the English language are love and balance.
Absolutely.
And look at what Piggy's writing about here, which is to be successful, to be confident, is being relaxed and balanced.
Yep.
And I really find it interesting how Coach clued in on that idea of balance, and then married it to the idea of love. I mean, somehow we're all still talking about Coach's teachings. He's not just another coach. He is this master teacher.
If you talk to any team I ever coached, if you go get my third grade basketball team right now, and you get my sixth grade basketball, and you line them up, and ask them what the most important words in the dictionary are. And they might not know any drills. They might get beat by 50. They're going to tell you love and balance. This is kind of all you need to know. So if we go to now we're on the definition of competitive greatness, and we see be at your best when your best is needed, enjoyment of a difficult challenge, and we got confidence, which is a result of all these other things. It's about being on balance. In order to be on balance, you have to be in a relaxed state.
Unreal.
And I mean, I just anyway.
I got to ask you some questions.
Not anyway.
Where did you grow up?
San Francisco.
Is that right? So you came under the spell of Pete Newell growing up, of the great coach. Who'd you look up to?
I'm like the all-time sweat hog story of undeserving guys.
Okay.
My story and how I ended up marrying John Wooden's granddaughter. It's almost worth telling.
What did you were born in San Francisco.
So I grew up in San Francisco, and I grew up playing basketball at St. Mary's Park, and I went, which was all me and the brothers, and I talked a ton of smack, and I went between my legs as much as possible, and it was about you and your relatives, and that's how I played, okay? And if I could throw a behind-the-back pass, that's what I was going to do whenever available.
Sure.
Now,
who was your influences? Who did you look up to?
St. Mary's Park. Billy Reed, man.
Billy Reed. Love it. Who else?
St. Mary's Park.
What about Bill Russell?
I didn't have anybody. No. St. Mary's Park.
That was your thing.
St. Mary's Park, man.
Okay.
3-on-3. We don't clear it. Right?
Oh.
I had to give up a quarter to get in the gym. The guys be waiting outside. Come here, give me a quarter. Because it cost a quarter, 12 cents for a soda. 2 guys waiting to hold me up every night.
Okay.
So I bought a quarter. Here's your quarter, and I go in the gym. That's it. So
okay.
So now I go to your famous Northern California version of San Francisco, St. Ignatius High School.
Sure. Jesuits.
And I'm a total misfit. So I go out for the freshman basketball team, actually the kind of the JV team, and I make it. But I'm smack talking, bad attitude, pretty skilled, and the older guys in the team are beating me up in the locker room after practice, in case you guys think bullying just started, because I was starting, so I stopped going to practice. So my high school coach assumed that I had a bad attitude and that I didn't like basketball. So he cut me, but I never told my parents I got cut. So I just kept going to St. Mary's Park.
So you're going to St. Mary's Park.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So now
basketball's in your blood.
Fast
You're going to
forward,
play.
right? So now I'm growing up in the city, and I'm only watching one team on TV, baby, and it's UCLA.
Okay.
John Wooden. Who else are you going to watch?
Well,
they're winning it, man.
It
That's
was my
1970,
life.
right?
Thursdays and Saturdays.
So I only applied to one college, UCLA,
What year?
1970, and I only applied for one reason. I wanted to watch UCLA basketball games in person.
Wait,
There was no other reason. There was no other reason.
You
I
didn't
was
play
interested.
in high school? You didn't get to play on the team
I
past your
never got
freshman
cut.
year?
I got cut my sophomore, junior,
Your
senior
sophomore,
year.
junior year, so you
Sweat
never got
on.
a chance to
Cut.
play after that. Oh,
Never
man.
got, well, don't go so fast. So I go down to UCLA Sweat Hog Deluxe, right? And so
You get in on.
I get in the gym at night. Henry Bibby beats me
Henry
every
Bibby.
night, 1-on-1, 26-0.
How did you meet him?
He was down playing at night every night because that's what those guys did.
Sure.
When the other guys were out doing stuff, he was in the gym, like
Okay.
all the guys, right? So I was a good rebounder for him. He could beat me 26-2, 26-0. We played 10 games of 1-on-1 every night.
Okay.
Bibby tells me to try out for the freshman team.
Yeah.
So it's the Walton class. They got
And in those days, you had a freshman team that
And a varsity
you're
team.
mandated to play on as a freshman.
right. Freshman class is the Walton class. 6 scholarship guys, 1 preferred walk-on. There's 7.
Unbelievable story. So
65
wait, 70 is Walton's freshman year too?
Yeah, Walton's
Oh, son of a gun.
65
Okay.
guys try out.
Uh-huh.
All CIF, all everything.
Sure.
But, of course, they're not relaxed because they got all the pressure from home. They're all I don't care. My parents don't even know I'm playing basketball. I don't care. I'm just
Letting it loose.
So, anyway, I ended up making it down to the final cut.
Okay.
There was 4 of us out of the 65 that stuck. A week before the season started, Coach Wooden redshirted Marv Vitito and Tommy Curtis. So at that point, I got cut. Maybe because I got in a fight with Walton in practice. I'm not sure. But the head coach, Gary Cunningham, wasn't that wild about it. But I did live in the dorms
Okay.
with one of a fellow guy in the other dorm, a guy named Larry Farmer, who's my best friend,
Okay.
was playing on the team at UCLA.
Sure. Oh, that explains
And
that.
my roommate had a snake, a garden snake. Pussy Galore was a snake.
Okay.
And I used to bring the snake down the lobby and hold it up to people at night. So here comes Larry Farmer into the lobby, and I hold the snake up at Larry Farmer. And, of course, who is this crazy guy? Larry Farmer and I become best friends.
Okay.
Okay.
Understood.
After my junior year,
So wait, no. You go too fast. So your freshman year, do you start hanging around the basketball team? You
I
go into
play
games
every day. We play at
But
night, man.
are you going to games and you're just enjoying? Because this
and
is
I'm
the
playing
year.
at night every night.
Isn't
Farmer-
this Wicks in row?
No, but I'm playing against Farmer at night every night outside of Reber Hall because he goes to practice and he goes outside and plays at night.
Okay.
Any of you guys that think you need Nikes and sneakers and a place to play. Farmer's 89-1, best record in the history of college basketball. But anyway, moving quickly forward,
Oh wow.
I'm working 55 hours a week, going to school.
What are you working as?
Oh God,
Everything.
liquor delivery, janitor at the dorm, Olympus Burgers, which you know, fry cook. And my brother gets me a tryout with St. Mary's San Antonio, NAIA, Texas. They give me a scholarship
After
'cause
your
I could
sophomore
I
year.
could ball a little bit. I transfer and I graduate from there.
Okay.
Fast forward, Gene
How did
Bartos.
you? Wait,
Gene
How-
Bartos-
wait, whoa. How'd you do there?
I was horrible. It was the worst mistake they ever made to give me a scholarship. But I got a scholarship,
Were you-
and I was a great practice player,
Okay.
and I made the team better.
Okay.
But-
Good. Yeah.
And I got a uniform,
Sure.
and I got to be on a team.
No doubt. And coach will tell you better than anybody the importance of every member on that team.
Yeah.
Not everybody's the engine.
And I didn't get taken on the traveling team to the national championships, so I hitchhiked to Kansas City.
They made
and
national
I slept,
championships?
I slept in a van in the garage, and I sold tickets at Kemper Arena. I sold programs at Kemper Arena so I could watch and cheer for my team. every day at the NAI National Tournament.
NAI.
But I had a hitchhike to get to Kemper. First day I get a ride from a guy. He says, "What's your story?" I tell him, "It's Lenny Dawson."
Lenny Dawson, the great
So he
Kansas
goes,
City
"I'll pick
Chief
you up
quarterback."
every day. But anyway,
you skip by this part where I think your enthusiasm
well,
and
anyway,
your
so,
uniqueness
but anyway,
makes these people
so now
cling on to you.
Going forward, so Gene Bartow's second year, they have no player.
Gene Bartow follows Coach Wooden.
Follow John Wooden.
Not an easy act to follow.
His second
That's
year,
like coming on after Sammy Davis Jr.
His second year, they did not have a former player that wanted to be the part-time assistant coach.
Okay.
Nobody wanted it.
So this is
it
like
paid
$76, $77. $77.
It paid $135 a month.
Woo.
Okay?
Woo.
I'm making $25,000 a year in Fresno, no question. I drive down my Volkswagen, I quit my job. Bartow hires me, and I become the part-time assistant for $135 a month at UCLA. I rent a room from Estelle Lizzie, $80 a month, 12 cats, 5 dogs, no visitors, wash dishes at the dorm.
Wait.
Get my meals for free. Okay? So this
leads
the next year to Gary Cunningham, who cut me, hired me to coach the team that he cut me from.
That right. The freshman team.
Now the JV team. Because he didn't want
the same team? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
he
hilarious.
didn't want Farmer wasting time with the JV team, so he gave me the team.
Oh, my goodness.
So I hang around long enough. Now I'm coaching with Farmer. John Wooden's granddaughter is going to the games. We meet, and we get married. So it all started with the snake in the dorm.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I held the snake in Larry
and
Farmer's
this is
face.
how you became
John
the man
Wooden's wife,
who spreads
35 years
Wooden's
later.
legacy. Beautiful. Wow. That is something else. Okay, you answered. Let me see.
You probably
I
wanted
think you
more
answered
John
all my
Wooden than
questions.
me, but
Holy
who knows?
moly. Tell me a little bit more about Bartow. That's a tough position to get into, right?
Oh, Coach Bartow. You know what?
How do you follow the coach?
Coach Bartow,
You're killing
one
me.
of the I've never met a nicer human being.
Okay.
Let's talk about job interviews.
Sure.
So there's probably some young cats out there watching the podcast, right?
Absolutely.
So, hey, you want to know, what did you do at the job interview? How'd you get the job?
Mm-hmm.
Because I had to drive down overnight. I slept in my car.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next morning I went to the gym. I changed my clothes, my one pair of knit pants and a shirt with a collar. And I went and met with Gene Bartow, who's now going to interview me for the part-time assistant coaching job at UCLA.
Did he know you when you were there before?
No, he never knew me all. He knew I was Larry Farmer's best friend.
Okay.
Farmer said, you should interview this guy. Okay? So here I am face-to-face with Gene Bartow for the big interview. What do I say? I say, Coach Bartow, before you start, I got to tell you one thing. If you told me right now, Coach, to go over to the student union and get you a turkey sandwich with mayonnaise, I would sprint. And I would get you a turkey sandwich with mayonnaise, and I would sprint back. And if I gave you that turkey sandwich, Coach, and you opened it up and you looked at it and you said, Impelman, I wanted mustard, not mayonnaise, I would say, yes, Coach. I wouldn't tell you that you ordered mayonnaise. I would just sprint back over and come back, and I'd give you the turkey sandwich with mustard and say, here's the sandwich you wanted, Coach. Sorry for the mistake. Gene Bartow started laughing, and he said, you're hired. We don't need an interview.
You are my favorite guy ever. This is hilarious.
That's the job interview.
No, that's it. All right.
Be yourself.
And a good man.
Oh, the nicest person.
Tell me about that time. Did you know much about that time? How come it wasn't Denny Crum? Shouldn't he have been the heir apparent? In your opinion?
What I know, I've only read. Which is totally unreliable.
Okay.
But what's been written is that Denny decided early on that he wasn't going to come back.
I see.
To UCLA, and that J.D. Morgan really liked and wanted to have Gene Bartow.
And was Cunningham too young?
Coach Cunningham at that time did not want to get back into coaching.
I see. Oh, because he was making good money real estate.
Well, he was not what he wanted to do. He has a PhD in education.
Oh, okay.
And he wanted to get into administration. But I mean, we were.
So after
we were really. I mean,
tell me about your JV coaching experience.
The great thing about the JV team was awesome. It was all walk-ons, and
anybody that made the varsity I could
tell you one note one story I can tell you that would be entertaining. The non-entertaining story is that Larry Farmer told me when I took the team, he says, Imp, you got to keep one Craig Impelman. Meaning,
the guy who
there's going to be one guy.
The guy who's going to go get your turkey
it's gonna
sandwich.
One guy that'd be experience of his lifetime. You got to keep one guy. So I always kept one guy. But probably my most eye-opening experience from an athletic standpoint,
Yeah.
and this is an entertaining story, was about Kenny Easley.
Sure.
So those of you out there, if you're watching this show, you probably should know who Kenny Easley is. Hall of Fame free safety, arguably the greatest player in the history of UCLA football.
Arguably, that's fair. That's fair.
4-time All-American, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
He was unbelievable.
So Kenny Easley comes to me his freshman year, and he says that he wants to play on the JV basketball team.
Okay.
So I tell Coach Farmer, so he has to go talk to, obviously, he tells Easley to go talk to Coach Donahue. And, of course, they say, no way.
The football coach.
You
Coach
think we need a first-team All-American out with this sweat hog Impelman and this JV basketball team tearing his knee up?
Right.
Come on. Get serious. Well, Easley's kind of insistent about it. And Kenny tells Coach Donahue that he does better in school when he's playing on a team.
Quite true. For a lot of athletes.
Because his schedule is more regular.
Yeah.
So Coach Donahue says, okay, Kenny, well, I'll if you get good grades this year, next year
you could do that.
I'll let you go play on the JV team. And so the next year, true to his word, Kenny came back. So football season gets done, and Kenny comes out and joins us for practice. Now, keep in mind, I had been with the varsity. We had Marcus Johnson, who was Marcus Johnson. We had 8 NBA guys on our team, and that's probably a low count. Marcus Johnson, David Greenwood, Kiki Vandeweghe, Ray Elmwood, Brad Allen. I mean, come on. But anyway, so I saw some pretty good athletes. And, Marcus was at the very extreme level. But we get out in the court the first day, and Kenny's first practice. Now, the team's already going. I figure it's going to take them 3 or 4 weeks to learn our system and whatnot. So I decided to put Kenny at the back spot in the press. And so he says, okay, Coach.
A la Kenny Washington.
And then I don't want to give him any instructions. I put him back there. And the ball's on this side, and he's in the back all the way on the opposite side. And I'm getting ready to tell him, Kenny, you got to move over a little bit, right? But he's just sitting there. So one of our guys takes and throws a good long pass. Kenny Easley, the most startling athletic thing I've ever seen in my entire life. And you can't imagine it. Probably if you were around Kenny Easley, you could imagine it. He's in a stance.
Like he's going to hit somebody.
And he makes 2 defensive slides, and he explodes, and he goes from one side of the basketball court to the other sideline, and he goes up in the air, and he grabs the ball, and before he comes down, he throws a bullet pass the length of the court before he hits the ground to his teammate for a layup.
And you're like,
no. Wow. I blew the whistle, and I stopped practice. I said, guys, there's a new way the press is going to work. Because the press at that time, you would shade this way, and this guy had to rotate back a little bit.
I know it.
So I said, guys, this is how this goes. Kenny, this is the half-court line. Anything that goes on back there, you got it.
You got it.
Whatever you want to do, Kenny. You other guys, all 4 stay up until they get the ball across half court. Kenny's in charge.
How'd that work?
We were pretty good.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you this is a great sportsmanship story, a fantastic sportsmanship story. I was also coaching Jeff Myers. Jeff Myers was the little brother of David Myers.
Oh, sure.
And the brother of Annie Myers. Now, I had gone to school with David. Kathy Myers is my dear friend. She's the godmother of both of my boys. So at any rate,
Ann Myers
Myers
people
was
should
that
know could be
four-time All-American.
could be argued the greatest women basketball player ever.
Yeah.
And actually had a contract with a men's pro
Indianapolis, yeah.
basketball team.
So
preseason, yes.
I'm coaching Jeff Myers. Well, the good news is that Jeff Myers is pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, he's pretty good. So he's starting. Okay. And my other four is really good, but Jeff Myers is starting, and should have been starting.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't a conflict that, we say our last name is Impelmeyer, so it wasn't a family conflict. He was that good. Well, now Kenny Easley joins the team.
He's pretty good.
He's a little bit different level. He's coming off the bench and getting 25 in 10 minutes,
Oof.
and he was recruited in the ACC for basketball.
Okay.
North Carolina, Virginia. I mean, so he's a little better than Jeff. And but we're winning.
Yeah.
So I've kind of got a conundrum, and I'm going into Monday's practice, and so I'm going to call them both over individually and say, hey, guys, look, I'm thinking about making a change in the lineup, and I'm going to watch practice this week and decide, but I want to let you both know in advance. Well, before I can have that conversation, Sports Stories of Los Angeles, you kids out there listen to this story. Jeff Myers comes over to me and says, Coach Imp, he goes, I know you're like an uncle to me. I know we're family, and you're probably not keeping me in the lineup because you don't want to hurt my family's feelings. But, Coach, Kenny's a lot better than me, and you need to start him. I said, okay, Jeff, thanks. So he walks away. Now, here comes Easley. Now, I'm sure Easley is going to ask me what it takes to start, and I mean, because it's not even. He's been on the front page. They had a front page LA Times article about him playing JV basketball. So, I mean, it's like, So, Kenny.
Did they consider putting him on varsity?
We were pretty good. He could have played varsity, but we didn't need him. Yeah. But Kenny comes over and he says, Coach Imp, he goes, I know you feel like you probably should start me based on what I've been doing. He goes, but I think that would hurt the team.
Wow.
So I want you to keep starting Jeff and just bring me off the bench. I think it gives us better chemistry if that's okay with you.
That's a guy.
So
that's the kind of guy you need on your team.
So you asked me what happened next. You already know. I blew the whistle. Everybody in. Said, I'm going to tell you guys the greatest story about teammates you're ever going to hear your whole life.
Here's what happened.
And let me tell you what just happened.
That culture was woven throughout the program. That's the way Coach was, right? Coach always for the team, and that rubs off on others.
Well, here's a great culture story. So, at UCLA, there was a freshman court, and there was a blue curtain that came down, and there was a varsity court, and the locker room was over by the freshman court.
And that was the same court that Al Skates, the legendary volleyball coach, would use, and volleyball players would often talk about. I never got around I was stuck behind the curtain. Yeah, okay.
So, when you would go to practice, you would come on across the freshman court, and then you'd come across the curtain to get on the varsity court. There's a big clock on the wall, huge. And practice started at 3 o'clock. And if you were late for practice, your job was to go sit in the bleachers, and then coach would talk to you, and you'd tell him your story, and then he would decide what he was going to do.
Okay.
That was the rule.
Yeah.
And so there was the clock would tick, and that blue curtain was there, right?
Yeah.
Well, the time I was at UCLA, 6 years coaching, I never had a guy come over after 3 o'clock. I mean, every time it was like, 5 to 3, whatever, guys were on
the court.
Yeah, because that had just been passed down from 25 years
no doubt
of John Wooden. It was the curtain.
15 minutes early is on time.
So Larry Farmer quit, and I got a job at another school. And the coach asked me, he wanted to ask me a lot of UCLA questions, obviously. And he said to me, he goes, Coach Imp, he goes, so what did you do at UCLA if your star player is late the day before the game?
Yep.
And I said, well, Coach, I don't know. And he says, what do you mean you don't know? I said, well, I was there for 6 years, and we never had anybody late for practice.
Wow. That's something else, isn't it? Yeah, that's just culture.
I have to tell you a bad innovation story.
Okay. Well,
It's pretty
hold
funny.
on. No.
It's funny. It's funny.
Okay.
This is the no innovation story.
Yes.
So you're playing at UCLA, Denny, and you go to pregame meal, and the trainer is Ducky Drake.
Oh, sure.
Now, Ducky Drake had been the track coach at UCLA, and then he was John Wooden's best friend. And Ducky was as much part of us doing what they did.
The track facility, it's Ducky. It's Drake Field.
Drake Stadium, yeah. And he
Drake
coached
Stadium.
Rafer Johnson and C.K. Chang, the gold medal in the Olympics, et cetera. But he was John Wooden's trainer
Okay.
for all those years. They were roommates. Oh, athletic directors, don't get any ideas. They roomed together on the road.
Yes, of course.
They didn't even need separate rooms.
Like
Anyway.
that's how we save money.
Ducky was very much the glue
Uh-huh.
of the team. I mean, he was just Ducky was Ducky. But pregame meal, you would have eaten the same thing that had been eaten at pregame meal for 15 years, which I might not get it quite
What is
right.
it?
But I know it was there would be a steak and some green beans. Some of the old guys are gonna get mad at me because I'm gonna there might have I think a fruit cocktail. I think guys, I'm sorry, I forgot, but I'm sure about the 3 pieces of Melba toast and the 1 slice of butter and the small amount of honey.
Oh, okay.
But it was
wow.
That's what we
Getting
had.
crazy with that honey there.
This is what we had for pregame meal, and I know.
That was it though.
It was looking like, really? But that's just what we had. So
And it makes you
why-
relax
why-
because you know what's coming.
Today it would make no sense at all. But of course, us stalwarts would say, hey,
Good enough for those guys.
we got 10 of these, eating that.
Yeah, good enough for those guys.
So I always thought that was Ducky Drake's doing. Right?
Yeah.
Which would go back far enough.
Piggy.
Until
oh,
I
come
read
on.
Practical
Oh, my
basketball.
goodness. Coach.
And there's a section in practical basketball about the pregame meal. Guess what?
Coach. Melba toast.
We were eating Piggy Lambert's
Melba toast.
pregame meal.
1 pat of butter. A little bit of honey.
I guess we
Oh,
missed
wow.
the innovation bus on that one.
No, he probably, but on
Funny
some level,
story.
though, it relaxed everybody, right? Because you knew what you were going to eat,
That's true.
and that was coming. So,
Yeah.
and it worked for the other group.
That's pretty funny. So
That is hilarious, actually. What happened? How come you didn't work on Larry Brown's staff? Now, wasn't Larry Brown after
let me tell you about
Coach
Larry
Farmer?
Brown.
Now, Larry Brown,
Let me tell you about Larry Brown.
but not everybody knows about him. That guy is an unbelievable Philadelphia guy, right?
Hall of Fame, 10 times
Hall of
over. Most of your NBA coaches were clones of Larry Brown.
Larry Brown.
How did you get to become Alvin Gentry? How did you get to become
Any
the
of
head
them.
coach of the New Orleans?
So-
and Alvin Gentry is
So
fantastic.
Larry Brown took him
of
to the
New Orleans.
It took UCLA to the final.
Let me tell you about Alvin Gentry. This will give you an idea about the power of Larry Brown.
Yeah.
Alvin Gentry played at Appalachian State. He's an assistant coach at Colorado. Bill Blair's the head coach. They're going to get fired. He's going to be out of coaching. Larry Brown gets a job at Kansas. Bill Blair's best friends with Larry Brown. He says, hire Alvin Gentry, who's one of the greatest guys in the history of the world.
Yeah, he is.
Unbelievable.
Stand-up
He
guy.
gets with Larry Brown.
Boom.
Popovich, Larry Brown. Just
Yeah.
go down the list. Larry Brown is the tree
There's no doubt about it.
for NBA coaches.
And everywhere he went, they not only would win, but he could turn
Yeah.
a team on a
Yeah.
dime. Like he could just turn them over.
Yeah. So let me talk to you about Larry Brown. So
Well, how did he get this job? Did he play at UCLA?
I told you that Gene Bartow, I've never been a nicer person than Gene Bartow.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
You would be hard-pressed to meet a more likable person than Larry Brown.
Okay.
You cannot believe the natural likability and charisma
Okay.
that this guy has.
Mm-hmm.
So my story is this about Larry Brown.
Mm-hmm.
I worked for Gene Bartow 1 year, Gary Cunningham 2 years. Larry Brown's the new head coach.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
1980.
Whenever the year was, who
About.
knows?
Okay.
But I don't mean it that way, but I don't
Yeah.
remember. But anyway, he's a new head coach. So he's
79,
got his
80.
assistant coaches lined up. But he doesn't have a part-time assistant coach, the one that pays $135 a month. And so
Free dinners, I
I
hope.
have two options.
Yeah.
I can go to Pepperdine
Uh-huh.
with Jim Herrick and become a full-time assistant coach for $25,000 a year,
Okay.
or I could try to stay at UCLA with Larry Brown for $135 a month. Okay?
I'm doing the math.
But you got to understand how much. That's why we love Nick Cronin, because he wanted the job.
Yeah.
We wanted to be. I didn't care.
I
wanted to be at
unbelievable
UCLA.
tradition.
So I met with Larry Brown over the weekend.
Okay.
And I begged the guy to keep me for $135 a month. Right?
Yeah.
Imp, I love you, but I just don't have a spot for you.
Oh, boy. All right.
But let me tell you how likable this guy is.
Mm-hmm.
So now after he tells me he doesn't have a spot for me, he goes, but I want you to do me a favor. I'm bringing in a guy next week that I want to hire. And, you really love UCLA, and I think you could sell him on the idea.
Nice. Now that we're showing you
taking the job.
There's the door, but before you go.
I want you to recruit the guy who I'm recruiting to
take
the job that you wanted.
Oh, man.
And I said enthusiastically, Coach, it'd be my honor to do it.
Oh, my goodness. Who was it?
I don't remember. But I did it, and he hired the guy. So that's Larry Brown.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So you went – now, Coach Herrick, he not far from where we sit now, he was a coach at Morningside High School.
Oh, yeah. What a great teacher.
Right?
Great teacher, yeah. So
great yeah.
Coach Herrick had followed Coach Wooden all the way through, and Coach Herrick great at write everything. He's a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
So he's a curriculum guy. He got everything written down, and boom, 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 boom. And then he went to became the head coach at Pepperdine. Mm. And then the two assistant coaches that first year were myself and a guy who's a great guy, one of the great coaches of all time, the winningest coach in history of Pepperdine, Tom Asbury.
Oh, Asbury, yeah.
Okay. Tom Asbury won the league, I think, 7 years in a row? Uh-huh. I think they didn't lose a road game, and they were doing what Gonzaga does now in that league. But and Asbury, the confluence of knowledge, Asbury had been Jim Brandenburg's assistant at Wyoming.
Okay.
Jim Brandenburg had been Judd Heathcote's assistant at Michigan State.
Michigan State, yeah.
Judd Heathcote had been the assistant coach to John Wooden's best friend, Marv Harshman, at Washington State.
Oh.
And Asbury brought a tremendous knowledge to the table. One of the things that he brought was a real knowledge of, everything, but to teach the matchup zone. I couldn't teach a matchup zone if my life depended on it. I don't know it. You can't teach what you don't know. Mm-hmm. But he knew this inside and out because he had learned it under Brandenburg and, Yep. So Herrick was able at Pepperdine then to bring in the great Wooden man-to-man defense and then competently bring in a real defensive alternative, which was the matchup zone, which Tom brought in.
Can I ask you something, just a coaching question before I ask you another one? I just kind of did this instinctively, but I never really saw Coach right on it. Going full court, you're in a 2-2-1 zone press.
Yep.
And then when did you then transition into the man-to-man? Was it after the ball crossed half court? And then theoretically you're supposed to be on the person you're assigned to, but do you just pick up where you've ended up on your rotation before you switch? Because I don't remember Wooden's team switching a whole lot once they started playing defense.
I can't speak for Coach Wooden because I wouldn't have practiced with him. So all I can do is give you my best Larry Farmer, Gary Cunningham.
Yep, which is
version.
A direct line.
Anyway, so in the front of the press, we have two guys.
Yeah.
One man and a two-man. If the ball gets behind.
I look over at my daughter right now. She remembers all this because I got to coach her in high school.
If the ball gets behind the 1 and 2 guy, the press is broken. We get back. First guy back takes a basket. Next guy back is a little inside, a little above the free throw line, takes the ball. Everybody else is sprinting back, branching out, guarding who needs to get guarded. So we're not – if we can get to our guy –
great.
If not,
okay,
we're not.
Fair enough.
And certainly if the ball crossed half court. But, Coach Wooden in the press, what he did with that, the challenge is this. Coach Wooden had this framework, but he coached all of his teams differently.
Yeah.
So
like he treated people.
Like Walt Hazard learned one version of John Wooden. Mm-hmm. Larry Farmer learned a different version. I mean, different systems. So with Walt Hazzard, his offense, Coach Wooden's high post offense was almost a wide open, put it on the ground, passing game because you had Hazzard, Goodrich. I mean, they were running cuts. They were cutting, not screening.
Yeah.
And so that kind of became Hazzard's version of the offense. Larry Farmer played in the Wicks Row era where we set a good screen. We came off, open shot, tossed it into the big guy, typical inside out. So that was kind of the Gary Cunningham, whatever. So So
each team a little
it's
different.
hard to say what Coach Wooden did.
Yeah, and come to think
Because
of
he
it,
was
that's something I took from Coach that was one of the things he said, like, I think it's entirely fair that I don't treat any two people the same way. Everybody needs to be met at a particular place.
Yeah.
And I would imagine that it also is on a team.
Yep.
That each team is probably, coached a little different according to their strengths and what they needed to, improve on.
I think that's probably the most difficult when you're working with a business. That's probably the most difficult Wooden concept to teach. Because kind of typically, if we think about normal teams and team environments or work environments, everybody said, well, just treat everybody the same. I mean, that's
almost what's in
that's
almost state law.
That, right?
Yeah.
And, Coach Wooden realized at one point in time that he couldn't treat everybody the same. He was going to treat everybody with the respect that they earned and deserved.
Mm-hmm.
But he was going to be fair
mm-hmm.
with everybody. And so if you were going to say a direct business application, Coach Wooden used to tell the team, I love you all the same, but I don't like you all the same. And
Right.
there's some of you I'd never want to date my daughter in your entire lifetime, but you'll probably start and play a lot. And there's others that I would love you to marry my daughter, but you might not play. So that's not going to get into the mix. But I used to say I'm going to treat you all the same, but I'm not going to treat you all the same. Now, if you study all the coaches, the famous coaches, they all had that same. Vince Lombardi, very underrated in that regard. There was the famous misquoted saying where one of the Leroy, whatever his name was, said, he treated us all the same. He treated us like dogs.
Yeah.
That was not the case. Lombardi was a master psychologist. And the way he would talk to Fuzzy Thurston would be completely different than the way he would talk to Jim Taylor.
Sure.
And he knew how to talk to that one guy. Coach has said many times that the way he coached Hazzard and Goodrich was
entirely different.
Was completely different. And the way I would explain it to employees is that if you've been working with the company for 10 years and you have a perfect time and attendance record and you tell me that you need 6 months off to go back to Kansas to help your ailing mother,
mm-hmm.
my response might be different than if you've been working here for 6 months and you've been late 10 times and you want to go back to Kansas.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
So that's kind of the...
What year did you marry into the family then?
35 years ago.
I'm doing the math. So
I'm 1984, I guess that is. That right?
84, 85, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm.
And so Coach had been, 10 years retired, 9 years retired. And were you...
So look at this. I got to show you. I remember I told you about this.
Oh, yeah.
So I got to always give... This is my copy of Practical Modern Basketball. And anytime Coach signed anything for a child, he'd sign it love.
Mm-hmm.
For a little child.
That's right. There's one right up underneath that television that says, "For Sienna, love, John Wooden, UCLA."
He wrote love?
Yeah.
And yours says best wishes.
Yeah. I know where I stand.
So it's perfect. How old were you when Coach signed that for you, Sienna?
I was probably 8.
Yeah.
Like
So everything he ever
70
signed for a child, he signed love. Look, right at Sienna's spot on. So I asked Coach at one point in time, this is signed in 84, after we had been married, and Coach signed his book to me with a little bit more than just good luck.
Best wishes.
I'll let Denny read that to
So this is the one
the way Coach wouldn't sign his book
so,
to me.
for Coach, he called me Coach on my ball, by the way. For Coach Craig Impelman, with best wishes always, and the request to do your best to make Christy happy and keep her happy. John Wooden on Christmas Eve of 1984.
So now I have to tell you my if you want to.
Wow, that's so sweet. He is such a sweet man.
Sweet? It says request.
Well,
to
he's looking out.
He's
looking out for Christy.
Keep her happy.
He's not worried about you.
Clear concise.
He's looking out for Christy, I think.
Okay, Denny, I've told you this story, but this is I was thinking about my favorite John Wooden stories because it goes to Christmas Eve. The Christmas Eve story. So, John Wooden, there's a word I like to use. It's eidetic. And you folks at home can look it up in the dictionary. And I may not be using the word exactly right. It's a version of photographic, but it's a little bit more extreme than photographic. But John Wooden, when he speaks, people are always amazed when he spoke because he would reel off poems. And they'd always go, "Where's the teleprompter? Oh, I can't believe he just did that poem." Well, reality was I knew that Coach Wooden had about 25 poems in the box.
Okay. That he had memorized.
He could pull them out anytime he wanted.
Yeah.
He just had them. I mean, it was what it was,
Uh-huh.
which is amazing.
It is.
On its own. Christmas Eve, I'm at Nan Wooden, I call her Mom, Grand Nan's house, Coach Wooden's daughter's house, and I'm sitting on the couch in the living room. And in the middle is Papa here, and on this side is Karen, my wife's sister, and I'm sitting here, just the three of us. And Karen says, "Papa, how did you get interested in poetry?" And Papa says, "Well, on the farm, after the chores were done at night, my dad used to read us scripture, and then after he read scripture, he would read poetry to us."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then Coach does what he does, which is to sit back just a little, and he does this, and he closes his eyes and he leans back.
Yep.
And he proceeds to recite two really long, reasonably long, 19th century poems, which I have never, they're not in the 25.
Oh, wow.
They're not in the box. Okay? I've never heard him recite these poems before.
Yeah.
I mean, not even close. So he gets all done.
He's pulling those out from his childhood.
Karen's like, "Oh, Papa, that's amazing." And well, of course, I said, "Papa, I've never heard you recite those poems before." And he says, "Well, I never have." And I said, "Well, how did you remember them?" He goes, "Well, that's two that Dad used to read on the porch."
Wow. Yeah, he had that kind of recall. Because he could recall almost anything when queried, like in his interviews that he would do. And people would ask him about something, and he could go into unbelievable detail about something from 1938.
And then if you're talking about kind of going from the next astonishing, I don't know who could do this. I don't know anybody who does this. I'm sure there's somebody out there who does it. Okay, but we talk about preparation.
Mm-hmm.
So it's well known that John Wooden
failing to prepare is preparing to fail.
It's well known that John Wooden spent 2 hours every day, 10 to 12, uninterrupted, unless there's a family emergency, planning practice.
10 to 12.
That's no big secret. Every day.
Uh-huh.
Now, the fact that he did this every day for 25 years and that the outline of practice is pretty much on the surface the same or similar year to year, it becomes a little bit more amazing. But if you walked into John Wooden's office, to get the whole story correct, there was binders in a bookcase. And I think maybe Coach Herrick has these binders. And the binders were the practice schedules for all the years that John Wooden had coached at UCLA. And every day before the meeting, he would take out 3 binders, which would be the 3 previous years. Because if he had a senior, that meant that he would have been at practice that day.
Oh, right.
So he's got those binders opened up with the minute-by-minute what happened in practice.
Yeah.
But there's notes about what happened in practice. Now, let's talk about how that happened. So he goes to practice, and he has his card. I can't say that he's writing on his card during practice because I don't know one way or the other.
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing he didn't need to, given the poem story. But what I do know is that, and my wife thinks it's funny that I would even bring this up, is that they would come back in the locker room, the coaches, after practice, and before the coaches took a shower, my wife thinks that's an unnecessary detail. Before the coaches took a shower, he would have them sit down, right? And they would recount practice. What went well, what didn't do well, blah, 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 blah. And Coach Wooden would make notes about it.
Okay.
Detailed notes. This drill was too long, on the card.
And then in the binder.
Now,
Not
he gets done. He takes a shower. The team is showering. They're going to be headed up for pregame meal, which is yet another story. Coach then, while they're doing that, goes up to the office before pregame meal, takes the binder from that day's practice, and puts the notes from the card on the binder. Boom. And this goes on for – so imagine being a sales guy and doing that every time you did a sales call. Having the discipline.
To do that every single time.
And then I mean every time.
Jeez.
Right? And, if we're talking about attention to detail, if we're talking about organization,
yeah, unreal.
I mean, Coach, when they built Pauley Pavilion, Coach requested that the visitors' locker room be identical to his locker room. And he wanted it nice, but not too nice. And he thought it would be discourteous for his team to have a big locker room and the other team to have.
Wasn't exactly the Boston Garden.
People seem to say that you need it for recruiting. Coach didn't want somebody if they didn't want to come.
That's right.
So if you run a company and you're begging somebody to join your company, you don't need them on your team. But let's talk about after practice, right? You got to take your gear, and you got to take your shoes. Denny, you got to take your shoes to the cage. Obviously, you got to clean your locker up.
Yep.
Spick and span. And Coach does go in and check the locker room.
That upset him more than anything.
And
if you left a place.
You go to the cage and you turn your shoes in. Because your shoes are kept in a special shelf where it's temperature controlled with the laces open to air out.
He really did care about your feet, didn't he?
Because Coach thought that was the most important thing. Then they would take your gear. The manager would count your gear. And then he would give you an orange. And then before computers, on the bulletin board right there would be the stats already posted from that day's scrimmage.
Jesus.
And the cumulative stats that were taken to practice.
Unreal.
And Coach didn't need to have a conversation. He didn't need to tell him to look at the board.
No.
He didn't need to have a speech about the numbers, right? Because guess what? They were going to look.
They were going to look. What do you think when you got to know him a little bit better, 84, 85, you'd married into the family, do you think he missed coaching at all?
Coach?
Yeah.
I don't know. He always said that that he missed practice.
That he missed practice.
Maybe he said that over and over again, that he that he missed practice. But I would guess that he missed.
What were those days like? Because then his routine became going to VIPs. Was it called the
VIPs?
VIPs. Yep.
See, Denny, you're leading me to a new, unreleased story.
Okay. By all means, do tell.
This is an unbelievable story. This story's never been told.
Okay.
I think I told one person.
Okay.
So there's a coffee shop in the valley. The food is great, by the way. It's called Vips.
Vips.
And Coach Wooden went to Vips not every morning, but many mornings for breakfast.
Yeah.
And he sat in the same booth, and he had the same thing. And the owner is Paul and his wife, and I hope my wife never sees this podcast because I can't remember Paul's wife's name, and she's fantastic, unbelievable, the greatest person in the history of the world. They run the business.
Okay.
So there's a couple things with Coach Wooden that you can never do.
All right.
You can never get a check.
Oh.
And you can never open the door for him.
Is that right?
You try to open the door for John Wood, not going to happen. He's going to open the door for you. And if you're eating with the guy, you're never going to get the check.
Okay.
He's going to get the check. I mean,
That's the way it goes.
that's the way it goes. Now, Nan Wooden's husband, Dick, was the only guy I ever saw that Coach let open a door for him. So, Dick.
Okay.
But back to the story. So I don't know at what point in time Coach had a saying that I originally didn't like, which was the time to make friends is before you need them, because I thought it was gimmicky. But what Coach meant by that saying was don't make somebody your friend just because you want something from them.
Yeah.
Just be friendly to be friendly.
Okay.
So now we're going to go into the story. So at a point in time, Coach Wooden, maybe it was after he passed away, I don't know, but there's a booth, John Wooden's booth. But I know the Wooden's family money was no good at Vips.
Okay. They understood.
So we could go there, we could try to pay, and Paul will not let you pay.
Nice.
I mean, it doesn't matter. He's not going to let you pay. It doesn't matter. You know, and you can't even tip the waitress and the busboy. He's going to say, I got that. So you have to sneak cash tips to the waitress and the busboy when Paul's not looking, but you're definitely not going to get the check. So, and this still goes on to this day. And you think about the Wooden.
That's something else. Well,
you think about John Wooden's legacy. Really, 10 years later, you're springing for this guy's family's meals. And if you bring 10 people, 20 people.
Well, I'm sure Gandhi didn't pay for his checks either.
Still the same thing, right?
Okay.
I don't know if Coach paid or not. That would be a Mike Warren question.
Okay.
But which another guy, that's a guy you should have on the podcast.
That is a good guy.
He'd be great.
He's a good guy.
So here's my story. So I go to Vips, and I'm picking up my mother-in-law wasn't feeling that hot. And so I go to Vips to get some of the great wonton soup to go.
Sure.
And I call the order in ahead of time. And so Paul said, I'll be standing out in front. I go, Paul, look at this. So I park, and I go in. Well, Paul's not at the counter. So the guy's standing there. I think it's his son or something. And he says, well, did you order? I go, yeah, I told Paul. He goes, oh, yeah, it's right here. The order's ready. He goes, well, you wait. Paul's back in the kitchen. He probably wants to say hello to you, but Paul's not coming up.
Okay.
Right? And so finally the guy says, well, okay. And so he rings up the sale, and I'm thinking I'm finally going to get to pay for something at Vips. And so I give the guy 20.
Right.
And I think he gave me 5 and change. So I give the guy $15.
Okay.
So now I go out, and I parked in the parking lot behind Vips, which is really, it'd be like walking Denny from here. Long parking lot.
Okay.
I'm all the way in the back. 4 or 5 minute walk, right? The way I walk. So I got the soup, and I'm thinking, I did it. I paid at Vips.
You paid at Vips.
I go out, and I open the passenger side door of the car, and I got the soup, and I can feel somebody behind me. And it's Paul.
And he's not going to let you pay.
He doesn't say anything. He doesn't say anything. He's standing behind me. He reaches in my pocket and stuffs something in there. And he says, Craig, you need help with the soup?
Oh,
we don't
my
want
goodness.
it to spill. The lid's on it tight. And, of course, I just took the soup.
Yeah.
I said, thank you, Paul. He said, of course.
So nobody's
of course,
still to this day.
I looked in my pocket. There's $15.
The streak is intact.
So how good of friends did John make?
Yeah, of course he
Did
did.
Coach Wooden make? The owner of the restaurant's chasing the flunky son-in-law out in the parking lot in the heat to give him a refund. That's how good of friends John Wooden made.
You told me a story when we first met that cracked me up. Was it about the end of Coach's streak? They won 88 straight. I think they lost at Notre Dame. And there was a kid on that team who sat directly behind where Digger Phelps was, and I think Coach had Swen Nader on the team.
Well, there's 2 great stories. There's 3 great stories about that game.
Because that's like
There's
legend game.
There's a multitude of stories about that game. But so I'll start first of all with the first one I like, which is not the one you're asking, but I will give you that one second. Larry Farmer was 89-1 as a player.
As a player.
89-1, 3 national championships, best record of any player in the history of college basketball.
Jeez, win 89 out of 90 games.
And so
it's unbelievable.
Larry said that, or Coach Farmer said that he was giving a speech, and he was joking with me, and he goes, of course, some guy in the crowd asked, well, what did John Wooden say after you lost the game? And Larry said, well, he goes, I didn't have a lot of experience with that, but I can't remember exactly what he said because it only happened once. And that was back at that game.
At Notre Dame.
Yeah, at Notre Dame. That might have not. Yeah, that was the game.
Yeah.
It might not have been that game. But anyway, so Coach came in the locker room and he said, we got whipped. Only good things about the other team. Get a shower and let's get out of here.
Uh-huh.
And that was it.
That's it.
And it was interestingly, I had this conversation with Lute Olson.
Mm-hmm.
And
legendary Arizona
Lute was
coach.
talking about how he took
Iowa coach.
the same approach, which is super short, under 30 seconds, under a minute after we lose a game.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Because we're only going to fix it
You can
at
fix it in practice, and nobody's listening a whole lot anyways.
So there's a couple stories about that game, and it might not be that game, but it's about the game you're asking
Yeah.
about that are just great stories.
So 88 game winning streak.
And
Unbelievable.
I'm not sure that this is the game that this happened in, but there was a game at Notre Dame,
Okay.
and Digger Phelps was the coach. And the first great story is a great coach, a Hall of Fame high school coach from De La Salle High School, who's now the great athlete in his own right, who's now an assistant athletic director at USF. And he was a player on that Digger Phelps team.
Yeah.
And he idolized Coach Wooden so much that the night before the game,
Yeah, I love this.
he hid under the bleachers to watch UCLA practice.
Right.
He didn't want to get any secrets. He just wanted to see what it looked like.
Right.
And so he told me the story. He says, he said Larry Hollifield wasn't moving quite real fast. And he says, Coach Wooden says, I guess we all expect, hey, you got to hustle. He said, Coach Wooden said, Larry, are you tired? And immediately everybody, oh,
That's what was brilliant.
That's all he said.
Brilliant. That's what's so brilliant about him. Larry, are you tired?
Are you tired?
Are you
Yeah.
tired?
And so that was that. And so then he proceeded to tell me the story because he was on the bench
Right.
at that game. And I believe it was that game, in fact. But anyway, so Walton's in the game, and Walton has a bad back.
Mm-hmm.
And John Shoemate is really roughing Walton up. I mean, he's giving him
Shoemate was a great
elbows to
Notre
the
Dame
back,
player. Yep.
elbows to the back, to the point where Coach feels like he's trying to injure him.
Mm-hmm.
So Coach Wooden gets up, and the coach is telling me this. He walks down, and I'm not going to get the words exactly right, but he says, Digger.
So he walks down to where Digger's coaching
During the game.
during the game.
right in front of Digger.
Uh-huh.
And looks him right in the eye.
Uh-huh.
And said, Digger, there's two ways we can settle this.
Right.
You can tell Shoemate to quit trying to hurt Walton,
Yeah.
or I got Swen Nader down there who's 7 feet, 270 pounds. I could put him with some instructions, and that'll be the end of it.
See, I love
And
that.
then in
It's so
typical
funny.
Coach Wooden fashion,
Yeah.
he says, it's up to you, and walks away.
Yeah.
So the finish of the story is that Digger told Shoemate to knock it off,
Yeah.
and he did. The finish to the story
The real finish to the story.
is that the next week, John Wooden wrote Digger Phelps a letter
Mm-hmm.
apologizing to his behavior
Yep.
and also asking Digger to pass along his apologies to
Shoemate.
John Shoemate, who was a fine young man.
That's something else. That is something else.
That's kind of a classic.
That is so. But I could just see him going. Swen, he was a champion in his country. In
Oh,
boxing.
yeah. 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 But that did happen.
Oh man, what got you involved? I mean, I can imagine you were inspired, but to promote Coach's legacy and to start the Wooden's Wisdom website and sharing that newsletter. Because I should say to those that listen to the podcast or watch the podcast, they'll know that Wooden's Wisdom is one of the
It's
supporter.
amazing. It's unbelievable.
It's one of the supporters of our podcast, and it's where we're able to gain archives and relate Wooden's stories to any of our stories.
Great story. So I'm working for Gene Bartow,
Coach.
135 a month. And but I'm coaching at UCLA.
Hey.
So there was a guy that had ran basketball camps all over the Northwest United States. So he would bring in the UCLA assistant coaches as guest speakers.
Okay.
And we got paid, I think I probably got paid $100 or $150. And it was more than I made in a
More
month,
than you
probably.
paid in a month. Yeah.
It's a big deal, right?
Yeah.
And so Kelly Warner calls me and says, hey, you want to come up and speak at these camps?
Sure.
And so I knew at that time I wanted to talk about more than just basketball.
Sure.
And the only thing I knew more than basketball was John Wooden. And he had written Wooden's Wisdom has 414 issues and growing. And if you go in the leadership library, you can pull down.
You should explain. You've developed this website.
Well, I'll tell you that. But anyway, you can pull it up by topic.
It's fascinating.
And if you go topic medalist articles, it pulls in the original. At that time, Coach Wooden had written this book, and They Call Me Coach, but not all the other books.
Okay.
But he had written a lot of articles for Medalist Publications, which was a publication that was distributed to all basketball coaches. So the content of these articles was his sayings and his thoughts on life, which are very similar to what ended up in the Blue Book. So I had collected all those articles, and I'd had our basketball secretary type them up and put them in a binder.
I see.
So I got on the airplane, and I took that binder, and I went through, and I picked out 5 things from John Wooden that I had learned that I wanted to teach at basketball camp.
Good.
So that started that. 20 years later, 25 years later, who knows? I lose track. By that time, I was teaching these lessons at all my basketball camps that Coach Wooden was speaking on. This has been going on for 30 years, and it's a whole 2-hour deal called The Talk, and I'm doing skits about take out the trash and don't whine, don't complain, don't make excuses. And it's funny, and it's great, and the kids love it. And so I have a client. I'm running a collection agency, which is built on love and balance and the pyramid of success. We're the nice collection agency, front page LA Times, treat everybody great.
Okay.
And
Love and balance.
my client, Love and Balance,
That's
Love
brilliant.
and Balance, first day training to collector, Love and Balance. So my client, SBC, AT&T now, wants me to come and give a speech about Wooden. Never done a corporate speech. Well, I decided I'm just going to give the same speech I give at the basketball camp. So I do. And it works.
I'll bet.
So then I
bet.
wanted to give something to the team members at my work on a weekly basis that was a lesson from John Wooden. So I took the Medalist Publications, I took the Blue Book, and then each week our secretary would pull out, we put together about a 150-page lesson called Coach's Corner. And if you worked at our company, every Monday morning when you came to work, that piece of paper would be sitting on your desk. And a lot of people took it and threw it in a garbage can. Some people would come and hand it back to me and say, I don't need this, I need to make more money. And other people would tell me it saved their marriage. Other people would tell me they gave it to their child's teacher. And that went on for 10 years. So if you actually worked with me at that company, you would have actually read the Blue Book 10 times.
Sure.
Over the course of a year.
It makes a lot of sense.
So now John Wooden dies. Jim Haney, fantastic person, who's the head of the National Association of Basketball Coaches, NABC, 4,000 plus members. Imp and Lynn Guerin was instrumental in this. Is there something we can do to perpetuate coaches' lessons?
Sure.
And so I said, well, I got something, Coach's Corner. Great. And then Lynn and I decided we wanted something more substantial. So instead of a 150-word lesson, it became 500 words, a video clip, one of Coach Wooden's favorite poems, and an application exercise. Those are the 4 components.
Okay.
And it was delivered by email. Wooden's Wisdom, Issue 1. Curriculum started out 7-point creed, 2 sets of 3. Pyramid of success, 1 on each block. The mortar, straight to the masterpiece, practical modern basketball, on what it takes to be the coach.
Wow.
Coach is the leader, coach is the teacher. That's year 1 curriculum.
Okay.
50. It's only going to go 1 year. Come on, they're going to get tired of this after a year, right? 52 issues, right? So it starts going out to these 4,000 by email. Nobody looks at emails. 4,000 plus coaches. Well, 1 out of 3 of the coaches are reading it. 1 out of 10 are sending it to somebody else.
Which is
Our combined open rate, including forwards, is close to 60%.
that's unheard of. I mean,
So now, Coach Haney and I talk, well, here's my year 2 curriculum.
of course.
Here's the results you got for year 1. All right, Imp.
Look out.
Let's
Look out.
go.
So that's how it
So
developed.
now we moved into Coach Wooden's Saints.
Yeah.
I just sent Jim Haney an email 2 weeks ago giving him the results of our 8th year.
8th year.
We have over 1.5 million
Come on.
opens.
Come on. That is
From,
brilliant.
I got goosebumps telling you that.
That is
From
brilliant.
4,000 plus coaches that are constantly, new guys are added every week. Some are on issue 415, some are on 1, and it just keeps going. I ran out of Wooden content after 313 issues. I then picked out 50 other coaches, ranging from
Yeah.
Red Hour back to Bill Belichick and everybody in between. Just wrote my 4th issue on Valerie Condo's Field. And the results, we're still at this 60%
Unreal.
total opens. 1 out of 4 coaches open it. And then we've also marketed it to college. Obviously, UCLA gets it for everybody in their athletic department. Pepperdine, Oklahoma State, Florida. So the idea is that athletic departments buy it for everybody that works in their athletic department. The cool thing about it is that the open rate is the same with coaches as it is with non-coaches.
Yes. So, okay, I had worked in athletics for so long and then made this transition into doing this podcast, and certainly wanted Coach Wood in his wisdom to be part of it. So after I met you, I was familiar with Wooden's wisdom.
The vault.
But and then the vault was turned over, of course, which was unbelievable. But you said these things, and what we've done with the podcast is we have a coach's corner on our website,
which is great.
and so people go to that, and right now what's there is Coach's favorite poems, and it allows one of our listeners to read that poem, send it to us.
Which is awesome.
Okay. And now wait, then your
I have to tell you the
newsletter
story about
comes
the
in,
poems.
and I forward it to my crew.
Right.
And I say, if you want off of this, let me know. And most everybody comes back with, nope, keep sending them. Like, these are great.
Let's talk about the
and
poems.
so hold on. What is so important is Coach's teachings, and then you have picked up this legacy and spread it, and even a small little business like mine will use it to create a backbone, to create what we believe.
It's great.
As far as moving ourselves forward, and that's brilliant that you're keeping Coach's legacy alive
it's
like
fun to
that,
do.
and then you're putting your own particular
but
personality
really, I
into
have
it.
to say, there's not much of me writing in Wooden's wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
I try to pull out Coach Wooden's words, not Craig Impelman's version. So, and the vault that we're talking about is our leadership library, which has 414 issues. You can look up any issue by topic.
That's unbelievable.
Whether you want mental toughness, and you might see, oh, here's what Joe Torre says about it. Here's what Belichick. Here's what Coach Wooden says about it. But we got to talk about the poems, and we got to talk about the file cabinet. So, the poems for probably the first at least 100 issues were direct favorites of Coach Wooden's.
Yeah.
Okay. Other ones came from ones he marked off in books.
Uh-huh.
Now we're kind of moving into Edgar Guest poems. But anyway, let's talk about the file cabinet. So when I would go visit Coach Wooden, he had a little file cabinet behind him.
Oh.
And
in his den?
He'd sit at his desk, and he'd reach in that file cabinet, he'd pull a folder out, and he'd open the folder out, and he'd finger through it, and then he'd take a poem out that he liked, and he'd read it out loud to me, and then he'd hand me the poem. So that's
how it started.
That started, and of course I kept my poem collection. Fast forward, Coach Wooden dies. This is a great story. So obviously there's Coach Wooden's condo, and there's a lot of stuff at the condo, memorabilia. The family allowed UCLA to take his den and recreate it at UCLA, but there's still a lot of stuff.
It's brilliant.
In the house, right?
It's so good.
And so my mother-in-law kept asking me if I wanted to come over and see if there's anything that I wanted. I said, no, Mom. I felt like I was just a son-in-law or grandson-in-law.
Yeah.
I wasn't blood, and I didn't want to get in the way of there's 7 grandchildren, and they should have first licks. And so finally, Nan calls me. She goes, honey, do you want to come over and see if there's anything you want? I go, no, Mom. She goes, okay, well, here's what's going to happen. Tomorrow, whatever's still here is going to the library or the trash. I said, I'll be over in 10 minutes.
That's a true mom right there.
So I go over there. Now, this would only be meaningful to me. This is Raiders of the Lost Ark for me. So I'm there, looking around. Well, first of all, his entire nonfiction book collection is on the shelf. I took all that. There's boxes of videotapes, which I took all that. And Nan says, honey, you might want to look back in that closet. I think there's a file cabinet back there.
Oh, look out. Look out.
It's the file cabinet.
So that's what's on them.
So
Oh.
I go back into the closet, and I open the file cabinet. There's the folder with all the poems.
Out.
All Coach Wooden's handouts
wow.
to his players. It's John Wooden's file cabinet.
Wow.
So, of course,
Yeah.
somebody else maybe not so meaningful to me.
Oh, there's a lot of people. It's very meaningful.
There's Wooden's wisdom getting started.
But that's it right there, and
So,
you're going to share that. Wow.
It's pretty easy. So the poems that you're working with came out of the folders.
Unbelievable. All right. Well, you know what Nan said? I have a research team, of course. And she said, nobody in our family has a better understanding of the ideas and philosophy of my father than Craig Impelman.
Well, that's sweet.
Isn't that sweet? So now I have some questions for you.
Well, we got to talk about the vault, too.
Please.
Because
because
you're going to ask me questions, but let me tell you something else.
Yeah.
And you've gotten there already.
Yeah, I have.
Right now there's about 100 and growing video clips with questions Coach Wooden was asked.
Right.
So one of the fun things we like to do is if Coach Wooden, if you're going to ask Coach Wooden a question, what would it be? And then instead of me giving an answer, you can go
look
to the
at
vault.
Well, I'll do you one better. For instance, we just produced, because we do these interviews, then we'll post-produce them. So we did an interview with Peter Boulware. He played linebacker for the Baltimore Ravens on the team that won the Super Bowl next to Ray Lewis. So and he's a father of 5. One of his daughters, outstanding beach volleyball player. She won our national championships. Peter was nice enough to sit down and do this interview. So we did this interview, but in building it backwards, we then say, I talk about being a coach of my children, and I say, and this guy's got 5 kids and such, and you know what Coach Wooden says, and then we roll in a YouTube question where Coach says the importance of being a parent. And that's exactly what you have given to our podcast is
That's
the ability
great. I'm glad.
to go to the master and say, hey, why don't you chime in on this one?
And there's a Wooden's Wisdom YouTube channel out there.
Yeah.
If you want to look up and
it's beautiful.
see some short answers. Anyway.
All right. You ready? I'm going to ask you a couple questions. First, some hard-hitting journalistic questions.
So, okay, I'm going to see now. I'm going to see if I can not be Craig Impelman, and I'm going to see if I can be John Wooden. And here's what being John Wooden means.
Come on now. No. I need Craig Impelman on this first one.
You actually answer. Coach Wooden actually would answer Coach Wooden actually would answer the question that you asked him, and then he would stop,
Come on now.
and let you ask your next question.
I don't think he would. Yeah, he would actually listen as much. All right. Well, I'm asking Craig first.
Let's
All right.
try.
Which of the great UCLA basketball teams do you think was the best?
What's that now?
Which of UCLA's basketball teams do you think was the greatest?
Oh, boy.
I know Coach would never answer that question.
Well, yeah, Coach Wooden's answer is,
They're all.
do you have,
They're like my
I remember
children.
somebody down in Southern California asked him that question at a deal, and it was an older fella, and he was pretty sure of himself. And because he started out by saying, Coach Wooden, we know you get all your usual blah, blah, blah. I don't want to hear any of that. Just tell us who the best.
Yeah.
And then Coach Wooden said, do you have any grandchildren?
Which one do you like the best?
The guy said, well, yeah. He says, how many? 5. Which one's your favorite? Well,
I'm just curious.
long story short, that is a difficult
Of course it is.
question.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would probably go to one of 2.
Okay, fair enough.
I think conventionally, well, the one that I see, and I know Mike Warren and others would feel differently. When Bill Walton was a sophomore, they were undefeated. Their average margin of victory was 33.5 points a game, which is a record.
That's unbelievable. Their
Okay.
average margin of victory.
33.5 points a game.
That's just
30-0.
absurd.
Okay? So you got Walton at center. You got Wilkes at the high post.
Yeah.
You got Bibby over in the corner.
Henry Bibby
Right.
from the corner.
Greg Lee at the point. And you got Larry Farmer at the well, I guess you would call it the power forward. But what people don't realize, and I'm not prejudiced in this regard, Larry Farmer could guard anybody.
Okay.
Larry Farmer, 6'5", 2 feet standing, 1 step, put this much of his palm above the top of the square. So he would guard the other team's best perimeter guy. And Henry Bibby is an elite defensive player. Jamal Wilkes, elite defensive player.
Agreed.
That team was. Now I think traditional wisdom would probably go to. You'd probably have somebody say the team with Mike Warren,
And
Lucius,
Lou Alcindor.
Kareem.
Yeah,
and
67.
Guys,
Okay.
they're going to hate me. I don't remember the other starters, so I'm sorry.
That's fair enough.
Shackelford.
You just pushed the button at me.
But now,
that is my earliest memory of
let's-
basketball.
Let's talk about another team,
Okay.
which nobody would put in that group.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the dynamics of the team for
Yeah.
a minute, and the 5 starters. Henry Bibby, NBA,
Right.
multiple years.
Yep.
John Valley, NBA, multiple years. Steve Patterson, NBA, multiple years. Sidney Wicks, second player taken draft, NBA, multiple years. Curtis Rowe,
Wicks and Rowe.
NBA,
That's a heck of a
multiple
team.
years.
I knew
Against Villanova, no substitutions till 2 minutes to go when the game is in hand. They always talk about only 1 substitution against Kentucky, right? That Villanova game, he didn't substitute anybody. Whole game. I guess he didn't think they were tired.
Who's the best player coach ever worked with? I mean, to me, that's an easy answer.
He always says he's got a whole speech on that.
I know,
that
but to me, I gotta say Kareem. I mean, he's the greatest
yeah, he's
scorer in
got
the
this.
history
I
of the
forget.
game.
I get it confused. He does the most valuable, and then he does
Yeah,
the
he
most.
does.
He says the most.
What did Kareem go? 88-2.
He's got one that says most valuable, and the other one is most dominant. Coach Wooden does a whole speech on it. I wouldn't want to, but I will say this. He has said this. I'll tell you two best, which as a volleyball guy, and when I heard this, I thought,
Yeah,
now, Coach Wooden,
he
come
called
on
him
now.
an athlete.
He didn't say that. Come on,
Keith
but
Erickson?
Coach Wooden said
Yeah.
straight out, no,
Right.
the greatest athlete that he ever coached was Keith Erickson.
I remember.
And there was no him and hawing, period. And on the best player ever, right,
You got to go with.
he never said anything about his own team. But there was an interview when he was asked about the best player ever, and a kind of in an off moment, he said, Michael Jordan, I think.
Oh,
might
did he
be
really?
The best ever.
Oh, wow. Well, he would have been watching him,
Well, the thing about Michael Jordan.
right after he retired.
Well,
that's
the thing about Michael
his
Jordan,
college
which
years.
the average fan doesn't know,
Yeah.
is that he was the best offensive player
And the best
and he
defensive
was
player.
the best defensive player on the court.
Yeah.
So there's two things that happen with 3 minutes to go in a close game. And I don't care if you got Kawhi Leonard,
Kawhi Leonard is quite
LeBron
a player.
James. I don't care who you got. There's two things that happen. Jordan guards your best guy, and he's done for the night.
Yeah.
And at the other end, Jordan's going to get what he wants.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he is.
So that's the way the close games end.
Where was Coach born? In what year?
I don't know.
All right. 1910. Indiana.
He's born in 1910. The city he was born in was what? What's the actual
Hall,
city?
Indiana. Hall.
what?
H-A-L-L. Hall.
Hall.
Yeah.
Because that you have the correct one.
All right. What high school did he play at?
I've been at the high school. I got to tell you the statue story, and tell me the name of the high school.
Martinsville High.
Martinsville. So I got to tell you the statue
Okay.
story, and there's a video about it.
Yeah.
There's a video clip about this.
Okay.
So, but for your podcast viewers, I love this story. So Martinsville High School decides, without telling
In Indiana, of course.
Martinsville, Indiana,
He wins the state title in 27.
and they decide that they want to put a statue of John Wooden in the lobby.
Okay.
Okay, but they did it without asking him. UCLA asked him a lot of times, could they do a statue, and he says yes after I'm dead.
That's
But anyway,
him.
Martinsville High School decides to do a John Wooden statue. And Coach Wooden tells this story beautifully. So they build a statue, and they put it in the lobby, and they ask Coach Wooden to come back with his family to see the statue.
Mm-hmm.
And the trouble of it was that the fellow that did the statue, when he shipped it, the head got broke in the shipping. And they had to have somebody else do another head, but they didn't have a good picture.
Okay.
So the statue was totally inaccurate in terms of John Wooden's head.
Oh, that's hilarious.
So now John Wooden walks in with his family to Martinsville High in the lobby of the gym, and they're all excited to unveil the statue.
Uh-huh.
And, of course, Nan turns to said, Daddy, that's not your head. And Coach Wooden says, shh, he's better looking than me. and Coach never says a word about the statue having the wrong head.
God, you're the best. All right. Coach is married in 1932. Afterwards, where did he and his lovely bride, what concert did they go to celebrate? Who did they go see? What group?
Oh, that's easy. Mills Brothers.
Mills Brothers. I was listening to them the other night while I was shooting hoops out back where you shot.
Okay.
And the Mills Brothers are terrific. He was a 3-time consensus All-American at what? At where?
What, Purdue? He's college.
I'm giving you layups here.
As a player, Coach Wooden would say this, as a player,
Yeah.
he's the Michael Jordan of his day.
Oh, I know.
He's college player of the year.
Indiana Rubber Man.
Oh, and let's get that one straight.
Okay.
Let's get the Indiana Rubber Man
Let's get it
misnomer
straight.
straight. Because people say, oh, yeah, he's Indiana Rubber Man. He was always
Okay,
diving
go
on the
ahead.
floor. Like, sports fans, John Wooden didn't like guys diving on the floor because they thought it meant that you were off
Balance.
Thank you. Go back and watch all your John Wooden's videos,
Okay.
and you're not going to see anybody dive on the floor.
Interesting.
Maybe Dave Myers once or twice. I don't know. But other
Mm-hmm.
than that, so he got the name, the Indiana Rubber Man,
Mm-hmm.
because at the end of the gym, there was a kind of a rubber foam wall.
Mm.
And he would go so fast, he'd go in and he'd lay the ball up, and then he would bounce off the
That's
wall
awesome.
to sprint back on defense. So a sports writer nicknamed him the Indiana Rubber Man for the way that he bounced off the wall to get back
That is brilliant.
on defense.
That's brilliant, man.
So, guys, are we over that now?
Yes, and I didn't know that, and now I do.
Well, and
I
how
feel
about,
really good
how
about
about
that.
if we understand? How about if we understand? John Wooden's teams never took charges. They didn't rotate defensively because if you guarded a guy, you had to stay in front of him. Mm-hmm. I remember somebody asking Larry Farmer about the defensive rotation. He says, well, we didn't rotate. What do you mean you didn't rotate? Well, if you got beat baseline, you came out of the game. So how does all this translate, right? Come on, Imp. They're not diving on the floor. They're not falling down. Oh, they won 10 and 11 tries with a totally healthy team with no injuries. How did Jamal Wilkes' career get ended? Playing for Pat Riley, diving for a ball, and he hurt the ring finger on his shooting hand. Diving for a ball.
Where was Coach's first coaching job?
Wasn't it at Dayton?
Very good.
Ohio? But you got to tell I wrote an article about this because Coach tells the story when he was the football coach at Dayton.
Yeah.
And when he got in the fight with the player. You know that story.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I do a little bit.
I wrote a whole Woods Wisdom issue about it.
Yeah, and go ahead, tell that.
Well, I never get the story right, but he was coaching football, and there was a big offensive lineman, and he didn't want to do what Coach Wooden wanted done, and Coach Wooden was insistent that he do it, and the guy said, I don't think you're man enough to make me do it, and what ensued probably in today's environment would have gotten John Wooden
he would have
fired. But while we're on that topic, let's talk about coaches giving somebody another chance. Mm-hmm. And Coach Wooden always believed in giving somebody too many chances.
As opposed to too few.
Not too few. Mm-hmm. And when Coach Wooden was in high school or grammar school, the hustle back, get to Jersey was in grammar school. The high school, the throw the jersey off, I think, was in high school. Mm-hmm. One of the two. But Coach Wooden's brother had preceded him. We'll say it's high school. And Coach didn't think his brother had been treated great. So Coach Wooden's in practice, and he loses his temper. Mm-hmm. And he tells the coach, you're not going to treat me the same way that you treated my brother. Yeah. And Coach Wooden proceeds to take his jersey off and throw it on the ground and take everything off and all this gear and throw it on the ground and say, I'm done, and storm out of the gym. His coach, Glenn Curtis, about a week went by, drove out by the farm, and talked to Coach and calmed him down and got him to come back. Mm-hmm.
Or else?
Absent,
can you imagine?
Glenn Curtis giving John Wooden
that second chance.
Another chance.
Imagine. We may not be.
And then Coach Wooden, on this second chance business, was famous that he had very few rules. He only had 3 rules. Be on time, no profanity, and be on time, no profanity, and no cursing.
No cursing, yeah.
But if you cursed, you came out of the game. He didn't say how long. If you're late, you didn't practice. He didn't say how long. If you're late, you didn't practice. But anyway, but he had a lot of expectations. Mm-hmm. But there was no defined penalty. And that's because when he was a young coach, he had a lot of rules. One of which was that if you were caught smoking, you were kicked off the team. He had a player that was not a great student but a great player, and he caught him smoking. And because he had that rule, he kicked him off the team. And the kid would have got a scholarship probably to Purdue.
Yeah.
He quit playing basketball. He never went to college, and he kind of had a rough life.
Yeah.
And Coach Wooden always blamed himself for kicking that guy off the team. So he didn't want to back himself into a corner with the penalty on what a rule would be.
Where's Coach's first college job?
Oh, Indiana State.
Doggone right it was. At UCLA, 27 seasons. We know he won 10 NCAA titles. You know how many games he won?
No.
664.
Wow.
That's a lot of games. What award did he get in 1972?
No idea.
From a magazine.
Father of the Year?
From a magazine.
I don't know.
Sportsman of the Year.
Oh, and okay, who was on the cover with him? Who was on the cover with him for Sportsman of the Year?
72 would have been Mark Spitz. Mark Spitz.
And you have a daughter.
I do.
You have a daughter.
Of course. Oh, I don't know. Ann Myers. Who?
Unbelievable.
Who? Oh, Billie Jean King. Okay. I would love to have her on the podcast. She's got quite a life. Who did he win his last game over?
Oh, Kentucky.
Of course. Well, you the ones you don't know, you go, I don't know. And then the other one, you make me feel like a fool for asking you the question.
Because I'm not John Wooden.
How many undefeated seasons did he have?
7, I think.
4.
4 undefeated seasons.
Yep.
Okay.
How many?
7 championships in a row.
How many championships he win without Lou Alcindor or Bill Walton?
Well, there would have been Sidney and Curtis would have been 2. Dave Myers would have been 5.
That's right. Very good. What do you think his winning percentage in college and high school combined was?
I have no idea.
Guess.
In the 80s.
81.3. That's a crazy situation. Okay, we know that Notre Dame ended
Let's talk about the most amazing stat.
Okay.
If we're going to go stats.
Go ahead.
Okay. He got to the Final Four 12 times. He got to the Final Four. He got
62 and 74.
He got into 12 Final Fours.
Mm-hmm.
The one he lost on the buzzer beater, Cincinnati. NC State, he lost in double overtime.
Yep.
But he lost. How do you get to 12 Final Fours and win 10 of 12?
It's unbelievable. You're the best prepared team in terms of
relaxed.
Relaxed.
You think?
Yeah.
And statistically, there's not anybody even close.
Mm-mm.
I mean, forget about the 10. Greatest coaches and great coaches. 12 Final Four, 50 Final Four.
Mm-hmm.
But who goes there at 12 and wins 10?
Wins 10.
There's something. And, of course, here's the deal. Coach had this great quote. I love this. He told Roy Williams. I wrote this. I wrote a great 4-piece part on Roy Williams. What a great guy he is. Roy Williams said that Coach Wooden told him that. Roy, nobody can coach no talent, but not everybody can coach talent. And because those that don't have just like to go to, well,
yeah,
he always had the best players and
mm-hmm.
whatever. You got to have great talent.
Of course.
And a conversation. But to get 10 and 12, I don't know how that happened.
That's nuts. Do you know that 88-game winning streak? We know Notre Dame ended it. Do you know where it started?
I think it started at Notre Dame.
Mm-mm. Locally, UC Santa Barbara. Just giving a shout out to the Gauchos. All right. What was his?
Whoa!
What was his record?
Oh, I got one for you. Of course,
Yeah?
I don't think that was it.
What's that?
What's a game that John Wooden didn't coach?
Ooh.
Against who?
Ooh. You mean during his
there was one game he had a heart problem
during
he was
his
in the
tenure?
Hospital. He didn't coach the game.
He didn't coach against Long Beach State. Santa Barbara? Is that right? Wow. Oh, that was it? Do you think this was the one?
I have no idea.
Wow.
I'd be guessing.
That'd be something. To think it started and ended. Okay.
I don't know. I'd be guessing.
Do you know what his record at Pauley Pavilion was? This is a stat.
No.
149-2.
Yeah, but can I tell you what?
That's crazy.
Can I tell you what?
Notre Dame's got one of those victories. Who's got the other?
I'll clean the story up a little bit. But there was some streaks
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah.
Even when I was there. I remember sitting on the bench with Larry Farmer, and we had beaten Cal 51 times, over 50 times in a row. All right? Home and away.
You can't imagine. Like you just
50 times
you're
in a row.
always beating somebody. Yeah.
Hey. And I remember they took the game into overtime. And, Farmer kind of learned, and he's like, yeah, we can't goof this one up. But there was these crazy long
streaks that are just ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, it's Saints, I forget how many times we beat them. But it was a carryover. But you know what? We had great – it was kind of we had great players. I mean, if you go back –
oh, sure.
If you go and you go to our teams and you count after Coach Wooden right after, and you count the number of NBA guys that were on each team,
mm-hmm.
It was insane.
It was insane. It's unbelievable what they did.
Amazing.
So he wrote several books, of course, but one book that is probably nearest and dearest to me because I read it to my children. What was his children's book?
Oh, Inch and Miles.
Inches and Miles, yeah. Isn't that great? Inch and Miles. Isn't that a great book?
Yeah, I'll tell you what's a sleeper.
I loved reading that.
I'll tell you, well, two sleeper things. That's a great book. I had a dad one time tell me that he sat down with the Blue Book and read one page to his son every Sunday after church. I thought that was pretty cool.
Oh, that's really cool.
Another book that's a great wooden book. I never was crazy about the title, but the book is insanely fantastic. It's called A Game Plan for Life, The Value of Mentoring, but by Don Yeager, who did an unbelievable job. The reason this book is so great.
Which one?
A Game Plan for Life.
Okay.
So the chapters are, so let's say it's 7 and 7. Okay. John Wooden talks about 7 people who were his mentors, and then 7 people who he mentored talk about him. But go back to the beginning about John Wooden never said anything good about himself. Getting this guy to tell you something about himself is like not going to happen, right? But in this book, when John Wooden is telling Don Yeager about his 7 mentors, he opens the door. Here's what I learned from Mother Teresa.
Yeah.
Here's what I learned from Abraham Lincoln. Here's what I learned from Piggy Lambert. So if you really want to get into Coach Wooden really in his own words, talking about, I just passed this card out the other night. My guys, my little team, I have a little Wooden quote. I got this idea from Roy Williams. I have it on a business card. And every practice I give them all a business card with the Wooden quote and the parents.
Yeah.
And the players read it out loud, and then they have to say how it applies to basketball and how it plays away from basketball. The cool thing is they have a card. Not that we talk about a quote.
Yeah.
Because they take the card home.
Sure.
And they keep the card. And the parents keep the cards.
Yeah.
And they got these cards. But anyway, I was thinking about this book, right? And the idea of the Abraham Lincoln idea, the famous story that Coach loved to tell about Abraham Lincoln after the war, when they were making reparations to the South, and Henry Clay really got on Abraham Lincoln's case and said, you know, you're giving too much money to the South. They're our enemy. We should be, you destroy your enemy. You don't help your enemy. And Abraham Lincoln famously said, if I make a friend out of an enemy, have I not destroyed the enemy?
That's right.
And so that was the quote that week. Now, that came out in that book
From
with
Yeager.
Yeager, right? And I told the kids and the parents, that's pretty heavy-duty thought. Love your enemy.
That's something else.
I mean, they're like,
That's something else.
that's not grade school. That's big-time thinking.
You're
That's John Wooden thinking. And my son, my younger guy, has really taken that to heart. If somebody gets an argument with him, the first thing in his mind is that he's going to make a friend out of this person. That's the first. That he's not even thinking about the guy yelling at him. He's not thinking about the guy being mad at him. He's literally the switch that goes on is his John Wooden switch. I'm going to make a friend out of this guy.
You've took this information and made it your own in a way with your own spin on it and improved the lives of so many people.
Yeah.
You got to be so proud of the work you've done.
Well, it's fun. I'm having all the fun.
It's unbelievable. And at some
Most
point,
fun you can do is help somebody out.
and at some point, I do have to let my staff go.
Really?
So I got to tell you something, though. This is I really appreciate you coming on because this is unbelievable.
I got to give you the last John Wooden story.
Go for it. Yes, please do.
Last John Wooden story.
A walk-off.
Walk off. This is the John Wooden. What can you learn from John Wooden? Folks at home, the most fun you can have is helping other people.
That's right.
So you may think you're doing something good by helping other people. You're actually having the most fun
you could possibly
that
have.
you could possibly. This is what John Wooden figured out. So like Saturday mornings, you might think you have to get up and go play golf to have fun. John Wooden thought on Saturday morning if he got up and he could go find some people to help, he could have some fun. Tony Robbins interviewed him and said, Coach Wooden, I have a lot of famous people that are rich and famous, but they're not very happy. What would your advice be to them? Coach said, go find somebody to help. And the only story that we can stop with, John Wooden said at the UCLA Medical Center, the last week of his life. And he sat up in bed, and the first Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, he was chatting a little bit and having some comments. By Thursday, he wasn't talking at all. He was just sitting there with his eyes shut. And Dudley Rutherford, who was going to preside at his memorial service, came in and said, Coach, of course, Coach had his funeral all planned. He didn't want a funeral. His memorial service all planned. And he wanted what was read to be short, the 2 great commandments, love God and love your neighbor as yourself. And so Dudley came in, and Dudley says, Coach, Dudley here. I just want to check and see if you still want the same 2 things read at your memorial service. And Coach nodded his head. And Dudley says, Coach, so loving your neighbor as yourself and loving God, those are the 2 things. Coach Wooden nods his head. And Dudley says, Coach, are these 2 things you think you've done in your life? And Coach raises his head slightly and opens his eyes with that beautiful sparkle and says, working on it.
Oh, man, the best. Wow.
And Dudley says, what are you working on right now, Coach? And Coach said, loving God.
Wow. Wow. It's beautiful. Beautiful. You're the best, Craig.
Great to be here.
Oh,
awesome.
You win the best guest
That's
ever
all I
award.
got.
You win the best guest ever award.
Well, I want the memorabilia to ingratiate myself.
That is awesome. Sports Stories with Denny Lennon is supported by the AAU. Find a local event and join at aausports.org. And remember, you can catch your favorite amateur sports live stream, replays, and highlights at ballertv.com. Sports Stories, along with East Bay, supports the Heroes Movement, a nonprofit that bridges the gap from mental or physical therapy to getting strong again through strength and conditioning workouts. This free service is available for any veteran of the United States Armed Forces. Visit heroesmovementusa.org for more information. Sports Stories, along with thousands of people across the country, also supports the My Stuff Bags Foundation, a nonprofit that provides traumatized children with new belongings and new hope. Learn more at mystuffbags.org. Sports Stories with Denny Lennon is a production of Sports Stories, Inc. and is available on Apple Podcasts and YouTube or wherever you listen and watch. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and give us a review. It really helps spread the word. You can find all our social media links, archives, and other info on our website at sportsstoriespodcast.com. Special thanks to the John R. Wooden Course and Wooden's Wisdom. Original music for Sports Stories is courtesy of Lennon Music Productions. Original images by Sienna Lennon Photography. Sports Stories is produced by Christine Jimbo and Marley Rice. Sports Stories is edited by Bob McCall. Additional staff include Ray Castro, Teresa Dolan, Jake Downey, Carlos Haro, and Buck Magic Lennon. Kick it out, Buck!